Hi. Okay, so, yes. I am live again. Sadly, this time I don't have Connor, my good pal, buddy, chum, with me. That's kind of sad. Yes. We are continuing my crusade of watching every single Game Theory FNAF video, not counting the live streams. So, yeah. Let's just... Yeah. Also, I need something for the bottom half of the screen, like below the video. I was thinking about fan art, but I don't have any fan art. So if any of you have any fan art, you can post it on my subreddit that I have, that I promote sometimes. You can also, I'm trying to think of ways. You can send it to me on Discord. I'll be making a new Discord server sometime soon. I don't know if it's going to work out or if it's not. If it doesn't, then I'll get rid of it. But yeah. So, I'm going to start now. Yay.
Today, we end the horror. Today, we solve FNAF.
What was that gif? Welcome to Game Theory.
After months of intensive therapy, I'm back to finally put the original FNAF tetralogy to rest. It's done. No more Halloween updates, no more FNAF 5 rumors, and no more fan. Suck on that, you multi-bladed propeller of air. Shortly after my last Freddy theory, I arranged a live stream with some fellow FNAFers to close the book on the series. And what happened was something that none of us expected. We have it, and we're back. No, not the stream issues. Scott started talking to us. Well, kinda. He kept updating his...
Actually, I just realized I should probably turn on captions. I don't know why I haven't done that. Because you guys might have some trouble with hearing. Yeah. Just in case.
GodGames.com with cryptic messages as to the true meaning of the game. What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. In the FNAF 4 minigame, why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? And finally, 4 games, 1 story. It was incredible! After a year of taking shots in the dark, finally we were, in a way, hearing back from the man who knew all the answers. Scott Kaufman, the creator, was reaching out from the shadows to give us, for pretty much the first time ever, concrete leads as to where to look. But what did these cryptic clues mean? In the moment, the best I could do was this. Is it possible that FNAF 2 didn't actually happen? But in the days that followed, those 3 clues led theorists on Reddit, Steam, and YouTube to completely throw out everything that they knew about the franchise. What if we were looking at the franchise all wrong? Instead of counting animatronic toes, calculating minimum wage rates, and tracking Purple Guy's work history, maybe we needed to take a step back. What if everything in FNAF was just a dream? That's right, FNAF dream theory. That everything we played through these games was created in the mind of the FNAF 4's crying child. It sounds like a cop-out, right? Like a lazy storytelling cliche. Maybe. But stay with me. Even if you think you've heard parts of this theory before, you'll want to stick around. I've unearthed the clues that finally put our year and a half of FNAF speculating to rest. Of the 3 clues Scott gave us that day, the most damning one was the last one. Why would Tiny Toy Chica be missing her beak? What? In the FNAF 4 minigame, you can talk to a small girl on the playground with toy versions of Bonnie, Freddy, and Chica. But her beak is missing? During the stream, we were all like, Scott, please. But when we looked, sure enough, there it was. A few orange pixels laying on the ground. What? Seriously? This was the crucial detail all of us had missed. And yet, for as absurd as it may sound, those 5 pixels changed everything, upending a year worth of theorizing. Because that missing beak directly parallels FNAF 2's new version of Chica, who loses her beak when she goes on the attack. It was something we all had written off as a graphical glitch or a design choice, not as a clue to the meaning of the entire series, and yet here it was from the creator's mouth. And that is when it started to click. FNAF 2's shiny new animatronics. What are they called? Toy animatronics. And that's not just a cute name the community came up with like Freddles. It's right there in the custom night menu. It's canon. That's a strange name for a bunch of robots, right? Unless it's meant to be taken literally and then they're all just a bunch of oh my god. What if they are toys, and this is all just a dream scenario inspired by these little guys? Well, let's keep going with this toy clue. I mean, obviously, the toy animatronics are shiny, plastic-looking fake, just like a small plastic action figure would be. But it explains a bigger question about FNAF 2, the look and design of Mangle. I mean, seriously, the story we're told to believe in this game is pretty absurd, that kids just rip it apart and put it back together again, and so the employees just leave it as a mangled collection of parts for small children to play with. What parent would ever be comfortable letting little Timmy touch that thing? Oh, and here's a cute thing for you to play with. Oh my gosh, who could have seen that coming? But if we assume FNAF 2 is in the mind of a child who has seen all these toys, Mangle makes a whole lot more sense. He's just a dismantled toy. Think about Sid from Toy Story, who fuses various toys together to create hideous abominations. This explains Mangle's 2 heads. I don't care how much you redesign Foxy, no one planned him to have 2 heads. In fact, note that Mangle appears in a girl's room. An insignificant detail? I don't think so. The Chica Beak shows that this girl's toys fall apart, just like Mangle, the tear apart, put back together toy. And toys explain FNAF 1, too. The crying child of FNAF 4 has 4 plushies in his room. The crew from FNAF 1. Plushies, as in soft, stuffed animals. What are the original 4 animatronics made out of? Soft materials. Fur and fabric, not plastic like toys. So much so that the one thing that we hear about them throughout the series is that these old animatronics collect odors and never get washed, just like an overused and overloved stuffed animal. But the parallels don't stop there. Why is Foxy out of order in FNAF 1? Well, the plushie he's based on is missing its head. How about Foxy's jump scare popping in abruptly from behind a wall? Awfully similar to the way the brother scares the crying child throughout FNAF 4. In his Foxy mask, no less. And how's Golden Freddy fit into this? Well, in the hidden FNAF 4 Easter egg, we see on the TV that the show Fredbear and Friends features the Golden Fredbear alongside the core 4 of Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. That's your cast from the first game. The dream of FNAF 1 was inspired by this show and the plushies, hence it not containing any of the other animatronics. Even the fact that the child doesn't have a Golden Freddy plush, and that instead he has his imaginary friend, a psychic friend Fredbear, who appears and disappears at will, directly references Golden Freddy's ghostly behavior in FNAF 1 and 2. In fact, every game, design detail, and animatronic can be explained under this theory. The recurring elements of the phone and the fan right there from some of his favorite toys. The fact that no one in their right mind would work in a place like this? Dream, firing an employee for something like odor is a child's imagination of what employment is like. How about the weird metaphysical hoops that you have to jump through to access FNAF 3's minigames? Well, dreams have weird rules where dialing codes into cinder blocks makes perfect sense. FNAF 3's Springtrap is directly inspired by the girl in her golden body finger puppet that pinches and traps her finger. The idea that the animatronics stuff you into suits comes from this girl spreading the urban legend that if you die, they hide your body and never tell. The naked endoskeletons come from his time trapped in the supply room. Balloon Boy is the dream version of this kid, excited to go to the birthday party. They even have a single balloon each. Even the oddballs of Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie fit under this theory. They're the product of the crying child being freaked out by the shadows that Golden Freddy and Bonnie cast onto the wall. And while we're on the subject of shadows, Dream Theory even rolls up the purple guy. Let's pull in Scott's second clue. What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. Yes, he could be referencing the shadow animatronics, which are literal shadows. But what he's more likely referencing is Purple Guy helping a fellow employee put on the yellow suit. They're in a dark, shadowy room, and what the kid sees or what he thinks he sees, is someone getting violently stuffed into a suit when it's just a mascot putting on its head. Think about how traumatic it'd be if you were a kid and you were at Disneyland and then saw Mickey Mouse suddenly take off its head. It would blow your mind. But we all know that there's no murder happening. It's just employees going about the daily grind. In fact, that's why Purple Guy is purple. In the Atari-style games, shadows are represented not with black, but with purple, as indicated by the shadows cast by the animatronics on stage. That's why Shadow Freddy, Shadow Bonnie, and even the innocent employee in the dark back room, the shadowy purple guy, are such an unusual color. Still skeptical? So was I. Sure, it answers a lot, smooths out the timeline, but there was still one piece of the puzzle that was missing. One thing that was nagging me. It still felt like a convenient explanation, but not an intentional one. Not something that Scott had planned for the series. All I needed was just that one detail that made everything fit together. But then, while writing this script, it finally dawned on me. The nail in the coffin. The one piece of evidence that no one can deny and that, to my knowledge, no one has talked about in the months of theorizing. The detail that convinced me this theory has to be true. Are you ready to have your mind blown? Listen to the sound that you hear at the end of every night of the first 3 games.
Hello, Weird 2.
A grandfather clock, chiming the same song every time. Why would the end of my shift in an office be signaled by a grandfather clock chime? It wouldn't, unless I was asleep, dreaming in my house with a grandfather clock right outside my room. Just like the layout of the crying child's house we see in the FNAF 4 minigames. 6 o'clock a.m., time to get up. But now let's look at FNAF 4. How does each night end there? A beeping alarm clock. Why? Because we're no longer in the crying child's house. We're in a hospital, trying to recover from being bitten. Hence the pills, IV, and flower Easter eggs. No hospital has a grandfather clock, but they're all equipped with a generic digital alarm clock. This, to me, was the missing link, the piece of evidence that took this theory from convenient explanation for a lot of the game's weirdness to definitive proof that this is what Scott intended. My heart is racing right now. I'm so excited about sharing this with you. It feels like finding the Rosetta Stone, the one detail that unlocks everything else in this huge mystery we've been trying to solve. But at the same time, it's bittersweet, right? Remember what I said at the beginning of the episode? It sounds like a cop-out, right? Like a lazy storytelling cliche. How many of you agreed with that? If you're honest with yourself, I bet a lot of you. You'll notice across my videos I don't cover dream and coma theories very often for exactly that reason. They're too easy, too flexible. Because it's all a dream, weird stuff can be written off, logical errors overlooked simply because it's not actually real. In the theory world, they're OP. They're hard to argue against and can be molded to fit any random collection of details. And for a game like FNAF, where us theorists have spent thousands of hours combing through all the details, making and remaking timelines, bending over backwards to make every last piece of information fit together across the 4 games, it was just a dream reveal invalidates all of that work. It says that none of it really mattered since none of it really happened. And Scott knows this. Let's look at a quote from Scott in his update on Steam regarding the Halloween DLC for FNAF 4. Quote, "The story remains completely hidden. I guess most people assume that I filled the game with random Easter eggs this time. I didn't. What's in the box? It's the pieces put together. But the bigger question is, would the community accept it that way? The fact that the pieces have remained elusive this time strikes me as incredible and special. A fitting conclusion in some ways, and because of that, I've decided that maybe some things are best left forgotten forever." End quote. To me, the key phrase here is, would the community accept it that way? He knows that it's all a dream explanation would fail to live up to our astronomical astronomical expectations. It's underwhelming. What about the puppet? What about the oddly specific detail of the paychecks? How about Scott confirming on Steve that my FNAF 2 theory was almost 100% correct? It's this will the community accept it quote that makes me think Scott intended the dream theory to be official, but also understands that ever revealing it would be a huge mistake. Hence him keeping it locked in the box. I mean, you can already see it in the comment threads discussing earlier versions of the dream theory. People enraged by the sheer mention of this thing. Heck, you'll probably see it in this comment section. But it doesn't have to be that way. Sure, the nights themselves may be a series of dreams, but the lore contained within those dreams doesn't have to be meaningless. In fact, it's not. Think about it. The urban legends the kids are sharing had to start somewhere. That crying child clearly saw something that made him scared of these restaurants. And then how do the Atari games fit in? Are they just dreams within dreams? They're not. In researching this episode, I not only found the clues that solidify the dream theory, but also the missing links that we've all been overlooking in putting the FNAF timeline together. Scott's final clue about 4 games, 1 story may be a reference to a crying child's nightmares and eventual death in the hospital, but it can also be referencing the story of the game's primary struggle, the puppet and the purple guy. And next week, we're covering that on an all-new Game Theory, Saturday the 19th at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time. That's noon for all of you currently trying to figure out whether that's midnight or noon. I know, I get it confused all the time too. Why am I telling you the time it'll be published and uploaded? Well, we're covering that story, followed up immediately by a live stream discussion where I, and hopefully a few other theorists, will be able to answer your questions as we close out the year with the definitive answers to this incredibly mysterious series. And I want you guys to be there so you can ask your questions and talk about all this together with us live. So remember, that's Saturday the 19th at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time for that episode, followed immediately by a live discussion with you guys. I cannot wait to share all of this with you guys. And in the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory.
Okay, I have to say, that theory, I know a lot of people hate it. Honestly, in the first 4 games, it makes sense. I don't know if I don't like it or not, because I don't know, I like how it makes sense, but yeah, it does make a lot of things feel meaningless, but yeah. I'm going to go get a drink, so I will be back. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Oh, this is the live stream. Okay.
Cut the cable with Verizon Home Internet and cut your internet bill to just $25 a month.
Finally cut the cable, switched to Verizon Home Internet.
Cable internet wasn't cutting mustard.
I just plugged it in.
There's no surprise price tags or hidden fees. Hey, cut it out!
Yeah, no, actually continue doing that. Continue doing that.
Helping you get a master's degree in business in New York today.
Alright.
It's been half a year. Let's do this. Let's solve the secrets of fnaf's sister location months before the game comes out.
Ba ba ba.
Where today the goal is to solve the biggest gaming mystery of 2016 before it even exists. For once, I'm gonna get the jump on you, Scott Cawthon, and here's how I'm gonna do it. We all know that Scott loves dropping little teaser hints on his site, but this time he's tipped his hand a bit too far. Enough for me to get a solid theory going on a lot of key elements we'll see hidden throughout his newest installment, Sister Location.
Some clues come from the teaser images and trailers themselves. The biggest revelations this time come from the source code on Scott's website. So get ready for a comprehensive preview of what Scotty has in store. Because by the end, we'll look at every, and I mean every element of this franchise. From the original series of games, to the novel, to FNAF World, to the ever-evolving source code on ScottGames.com. In our attempt to expose the facts behind the next trip to Freddy's. Now, Scott hiding hints in the coding of his site is nothing new. It was the source code that started the whole Light of 83 versus 87 debate back during FNAF 4. But this time, it's a bit more than just a mere hint of what's to come. It is a fully fledged story. So let's take this line by line. This first big chunk at the beginning starts off like a collection of letters and punctuation, but upon further inspection, you can make out repeated numbering patterns and letter combinations representing days of the week. When pieced together, it becomes a schedule looking like this, listing out the days when certain animatronics are either available, booked, needed for a private party, or masked, either in maintenance or needed for a matinee show. Unclear which. It's also worth mentioning that 4 animatronics are specifically called out here. BBY for Baby, BAL for Ballora, and FTF for both Funtime Freddy and Funtime Foxy. Now, for those of you who don't follow every scrap of information about these games, let me explain. Reddit discovered that Scott had gone and copyrighted various names, presumably for these new animatronics. And here, we see it being confirmed. More on some of these guys in a minute. The thing I want to call out first is that there's clearly a 5th animatronic in this schedule, 0500S. Out of service. But who could this be? In the trailer, we only see 4 animatronics. Well, that's where this teaser image comes in. A few weeks ago, this image was up on Scott Games. A mask with glowing eyes and a tangle of wires, almost like tentacles, accompanied by this text. Quote, "There's a little bit of me in every body," end quote. Notice the grammar here. It's not everybody, but every body. This is our 5th animatronic. Our out-of-service animatronic. I mean, look at it. This guy ain't being booked at any children's parties. But that's not all you conclude about him. The text indicates that a piece of him, his soul, his mechanisms, whatever, is in every other animatronic body. This could have 2 possible explanations. Either he's possessed the other animatronics and is controlling them, which would explain the "don't hold it against us" line from the teaser trailer we hear over and over again. Or, more likely, he's the reason the other animatronics have life in the first place. This pile of wires is kind of like the puppet from the original series, giving gifts, giving life. Or maybe this is the puppet, a new and rebooted version of the puppet. Now, stay with me here. One thing that we've largely forgotten about since his first appearance back in FNAF 2 is how the puppet character just didn't fit in with the FNAF world. Sure, as it kept making appearances in game after game, we just kinda accepted its role, but seriously, Think about it. FNAF 1 through 4 were all about animatronics with big, bulky bodies and an animal theme. But then insert the puppet, thin and with a human face, complete with red cheeks, crying eyes, and red lips. Features that we haven't seen on anything else until now. Fast forward to Sister Location and we see humanoid faces everywhere. Ballora and Baby, rosy cheeks, lipstick. And now look at Day of the Tentacle over here. Notice that the ears can detach, separate itself from the main mask part of the face. It's the exact same silhouette that our puppet's face has had since the second game. Additionally, if you look at the trailer for Sister Location very closely, you discover what may be a very cool Easter egg. In the reflection of Funtime Foxy's cheek, we see something. For all the other animatronics, it's a part of their body. For Ballora the ballerina, we see the reverse of her arm and earrings. For Baby, it's her finger and bow. But Foxy here is reflecting something that has a bright red dot besides two colored streaks, aka a bright red cheek and two streaming tear tracks. It's like that time we covered reflection mapping to find Super Smash Bros. Hidden location. Could that be the puppet's face reflection mapped onto the model of Foxy's skull? Regardless though, if you ask me, we haven't seen the last of the puppet in whatever form he comes in. And based on the designs of these characters, Sister Location might finally be giving us the origin story we've long been waiting for. Now, hopping back to the source code, the next section shows us that there seems to be 3 file directories for various clients. The first is for a place called Chica's Party World, the second for private birthday parties, and the third for CRMN Institute. I can only assume Carmen Institute or Criminal Institute. This starts to tell us a lot about the setting and universe of Sister Location. First, many people have speculated that the industrial feeling setting shown during the trailer for the game is a factory for the robots. I think we can get a bit more specific. Considering the availability schedule that we just covered and the client folders with various needs for birthday party supplies, it feels like this new setting will be a storage facility and distribution center for the animatronics, responsible for shipping them out to various gigs across the Fazbear locations. The reference to Chica's Party World builds out the lore of the universe, showing another spin-off location to the restaurants, but also strikes me as just that, a reference, a fun Easter egg, referencing the one animatronic who won't be appearing in this new game. So far, we've seen versions of Freddy, Foxy, and a Bonnie hand puppet, but Chica has been noticeably absent. And honestly, I think it's gonna remain that way. For some reason, it just feels like she doesn't fit in this new world. And so the mention of Chica's Party World is a fun wink and a nod to a character that will be sorely missed. But to me, of all this section, the most crucial client is the last one, the CRMN Institute. Notice when you look at it that it has a subfolder called Project. This, to me, is incredibly important since every teaser image Scott has posted on the site related to Sister Location has been labeled project.jpg. Seems like a generic naming convention, right? Wrong. I went to an Internet Archive database and dug through the source code of all the past teaser images from all of Scott's past games, only to find that his labeling system has been very consistent. His FNAF World images were all labeled FNAFWorld.jpg. Images about the book were labeled FNAF the Novel.jpg. Even FNAF 4 teasers shared the titling of simply 4.jpg. The fact that Sister Location's images are all labeled Project and that there's a client directory hinting at some mysterious institute and a secret project going on there says to me that if we're not headed to a distribution center, then we're going to a place where these guys are getting experimented on, which ties in with the trailer quote of these guys are being experimented on, a project at some mysterious institute, and you can bet that they're not happy about it. But perhaps the most crucial detail hidden in the source code is the last line. A line that blows the door wide open on the story for this new game. Service log, maintenance, CO, or care of, AFTN Robotics. Afton Robotics. What the heck is that? It's a good question. If you're like 99% of the fan base and only know the games, this might not ring a bell. But if you happen to buy and then make it through all 500 pages of the Five Nights at Freddy's Silver Eye's novel, then that name sets off all sorts of alarms. You see, in the book, the Fredbear and Fazbear restaurants were founded by two men. The first is named Henry. He's the father of the main character and the creative half of the company, the one responsible for designing and building the robots that we all know and love. The other co-owner was, ready for this? William Afton, and he was in charge of the business side of the restaurants. Paperwork, taxes, things like that. So to see Afton Robotics in the source code teasing Sister Location is huge, because it means that the stories of Sister Location and Silver Eyes are linked. But get ready for this. Here's the bigger twist. By the end of the book, it's revealed that William Afton is what we fans of the game would know as the Purple Guy. Yeah, in the book, the Purple Guy is revealed. Afton is the one who kidnaps and kills children while wearing Fredbear-themed suits. His first victim is Henry's son Sammy, followed by 4 other kids, whose souls eventually possess the infamous suits. So, through these source code teasers, not only has Scott confirmed that this new game will be tied to the lore of the book, but we'll be dealing with a robotics company founded by and named after the child-killing Purple Guy. Now that's already a huge mind blow, and I'm about to go further, but before I do, let's address the elephant in the room, the canonicity of the book. The internet, by and large, dismissed Silver Eyes under the assumption that Scott said it's not canon to the first 4 games, but that's not entirely true. If you read his entire statement, and I understand that it's hard for you, internet, since it's 3 whole paragraphs that aren't summarized with a TLDR line, he actually says, quote, sometimes the lore of something can become so crowded that you can't tell an original story anymore. The first 4 games and the books should be considered to be separate continuities, even if they do share many familiar elements. The book is canon just as the games are. That doesn't mean that they're intended to fit together like 2 puzzle pieces. The book is a reimagining of the Five Nights at Freddy's story, end quote. And this makes sense, right? The first 4 games were crushed under their own convoluted lore and fan base dedicated to making every new toe added to Foxy mean something. No, I'm not saying that's a bad thing to have people enthusiastic about your story, but it does become limiting when you make continuity errors or want to do something new with these characters. And with the Five Nights at Freddy's movie coming ever closer, it becomes even more important. There needed to be room to insert actual characters into this story. You can't make a movie out of some pre-taped phone tutorials and silent furry monsters. Thus, enter Silver Eyes, which builds out new characters, new faces, and new stories that can be told in the setting of these games. So yeah, the separate canonicity of the book makes sense, but as Scott said, it's a reimagining. And obviously there's going to be a lot of crossover. And based on that Afton clue we just saw, Sister Location is going to be bridging the line more and more. So does any of this matter? Yeah, actually a whole lot. Because if we take the Silver Eyes Sister Location connection to its logical conclusion, huge pieces start to fall in place. Let's start by working backwards. Based on the trailers and teasers, Sister Location's main animatronic is this clown girl, Baby. But the teaser trailer isn't the first time she appears. She's introduced at the end of the FNAF World Update 1.2, something we discovered in our playthrough of the game over on the GP Live channel. Once you collect all the characters and beat Chica's Magic Rainbow, long story not worth explaining, you're immediately taken to a cutscene where a mysterious figure at a desk apologizes to you for creating a robot that cannot be deactivated. The bot's name? Baby. We then see a pair of eyes light up, telling everyone to take their seats before cutting back to the room to see the desk guy lying there dead, presumably killed by Baby. Now, many people assume that desk guy was Scott Cawthon since he's the creator of the animatronics and the minigames that you play in FNAF World. However, it'd be weird for Scott to kill himself. Plus, the dialogue from the FNAF in Space minigame, yes, again, FNAF World is a weird game, seems to imply that Scott is a separate entity from this desk guy creator figure. So if desk guy isn't Scott Cawthon, then who else could he be? Well, now that we know that Baby and Sister Location both have ties to Silver Eyes, we can actually identify who this mysterious creator of FNAF World is. He's Henry, co-founder of Fredbear's and Purple Guy's business partner. How do we know? Well, not only is he the creator of the games and animatronics, his death also lines up with the way he dies in the book. Stricken with grief over the death of his son, Henry commits suicide in the living room by letting one of his animatronics kill him. One that remains nameless in the book, but is clearly not any of the core 6 of Freddy, Foxy, Chica, Bonnie, Golden Freddy, and Golden Bonnie. In other words, Henry, the creator, is killed in his home by a mysterious new animatronic, just like we see happen to Desk Guy in FNAF World. the events just line up. Now that's all the stuff that I feel really confident about. But now let's have some fun and take it even further. Admittedly, I don't think that this is where Sister Location is headed, but there is enough of an evidence thread to take us to some awesome extremes. So let's have a little bit of fun with this, shall we? First, notice how Baby is introduced to us at the end of FNAF World as 2 yellow eyes in the dark. And what's the first image we see in that game? 2 yellow eyes in the dark, along with the iconic ending line from FNAF 4, I will put you back together. It's also the last thing that we see in the true ending to the game. 2 yellow eyes saying, I will put you back together. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way that those are Baby's eyes. 1, why would she say that when she wasn't even in FNAF 4? And 2, we all know that that line and those eyes belong to the imaginary friend, psychic friend Fredbear. He's here,
He's there, he's everywhere. Who are you gonna call? Psychic friend Fredbear.
Don't be so sure. Let me remind you of something. In the FNAF 4 cutscenes, each character has a specific color for their dialogue. Number 787878 for the brother, FFFFFF for crying child, 57C0FF for the brother's friend, etc. Psychic friend Fredbear's dialogue for all of his lines is always the FFFF57 shade of yellow. And yet, for the final lines of You're Broken, We're Still Your Friends, I Will Put You Back Together, it's a different shade of yellow. FFFFA0. Similar, yes, but definitely different from Fredbear. So very intentionally, Scott made this a different character, but in a strange twist, it's actually a color of dialogue shared with one other character we see in FNAF 4, Pigtail Girl.
Use Haverty's free design service to explore your options.
Hello.
Amplify your home with confidence.
The one who knows that the animatronics come to life and get stuffed with dead bodies. Coincidence? Yeah, or at least we all thought so last year. But look at her design! Dressed in a skirt with reddish pigtails and big green eyes. Just like the design of Baby. Hear that? The collective sound of minds being blown across the internet. But if the glowing eyes, shared dialogue colors, similar designs, and repeated line of I will put you back together didn't convince you, it doesn't stop there. Remember the biggest lingering question from FNAF 4? The girls' room? No one had an explanation for it. I didn't have an explanation for it. And yet Scott felt it was important enough to the lore of the story to show us. And now we might actually know why. What if the girl is a part of the crying child's family? First, it would explain why we would see her color of dialogue reappearing in his final moments. As a family member, she would be there in the hospital with the boy as he tries to recover. And if she shares a connection with Baby, it would also tie together the random presence of Mangle in the room. One of the other key animatronics we see in Sister Location trailer is Funtime Foxy, which we can confidently say is an intact model of what will eventually become Mangle. Again, we're looking at the major details. Yes, some things may or may not be there. Notice the lipstick, the red cheeks, and painted fingernails on Funtime Foxy, all of which reappear on Mangle. So in the 2 games, we would have Baby and Foxy Ling.
But Funtime Foxy's face can like open. You see that in the trailer. All of their faces can open up to show their endoskeletons, but Mangle's doesn't. So no.
Is it a stretch? Absolutely. But then again, this is Scott we're talking about. To me, though, the coolest part about this connection would be in the name of the game. This whole time you know,
Wait,
the
what?
coolest part about this connection would be
Look. That's so funny looking.
in the name of the game. This whole time we've been assuming that Sister Location was referencing some other spin-off chain of restaurants, or, like I said earlier, a storage and distribution center for the robots. But if the Pigtail Girl's soul is trapped in Baby, and she was indeed the sibling of Crying Child, the phrase Sister Location takes on a whole new meaning. This is her game. A game about one sister's soul trapped in the baby animatronic getting revenge for her brother's death. Just don't hold it against her. You don't know what she's been through. Or maybe, now you do. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. The ball's in your court, Scott. You should subscribe for more episodes of Game Theory. You should subscribe for more episodes of Game Theory. You should subscribe for more episodes of Game Theory. Or cast your vote. Are you excited about Sister Location? Yes. Or no. Click on one to choose.
Yes. Okay. Now we're getting into ones that I actually watched a lot. Yo, Jaden Poole. I'm sorry if I said your last name wrong. Yo, welcome to the stream.
When it gets dark, they will awaken. The children's spirits will rise. They will kill you. They'll just walk out in the morning, stepping over your corpses one by one. You are intruders. None of you will survive the night. And what makes you think they won't kill you? Because I am one of them. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. Still available to consult on the FNAF movie storyline. Seriously, Scott, I'll be waiting by the phone because I can practically guarantee I put more collective hours of thought into counting animatronic toes, tracking eye colors, listing out the differences between pizzerias, diners, and rental services, parsing out your phone guy calls, and counting and recounting again the number of dead child carcasses left in your story's wake than literally anyone else out there. I mean, I've even gone so far as to do the unthinkable for these sister location videos. That's right, I reread The Silver Eyes. Twist, it took longer than the actual game. Now, here I am piecing together this script after, I kid you not, a weekend spent doing nothing but thinking about these games, writing and rewriting timeline after timeline to account for all the nonsensical Easter eggs shoved into this 4-hour experience. And you know the conclusion that I've reached? That your version of events isn't satisfying. That any theory I come up with that attempts to bend over backwards and cobble together every line of dialogue, design detail, and character motivation will be overcomplicated at best and inherently flawed at worst. And that's not me admitting defeat. It's a fundamental problem with the series right now. This one just tried too hard to do too many things. You've got elements of the past 4 games mixed in with FNAF World, mixed in with the book, all of which at this point have questionable canonicities, conflicting storylines, and competing dates. Couple that with characters that mimic other characters, characters that lie to you, and characters that may not even exist across the different story threads of the franchise, and it's unclear if this is a continuation of the books, if it's a continuation of the games, or just an outright reboot of some kind. The best analogy I can think of is that it's like the giant human glob you turn into at the end of Inside. A mass of limbs all struggling to work together to move in one direction, but all just flailing out randomly. And honestly, it could have been easy. With Scott saying that the original story was completed with FNAF 4, you could have just said that Sister Location was aligned with the book and FNAF World to start paving the way for the movie. But then you couldn't help yourself, Scott. You just had to throw in those FNAF 4 Easter eggs, huh? And those put everything into chaos. And it's not just me feeling it. Based on what I'm reading online, a lot of FNAF theorists sense that the lore contained in Sister Location is a game changer, but then they don't exactly know why or what to do with it. Struggling under the weight of explaining away innards and babies, Mikes and Williams, casual bongos and exotic butters. What's an Easter egg, what's a tongue-in-cheek reference, and what is actual canon? So understandably, there's some confusion about what's actually going on in this game, and that is what I'm out to solve in these videos. Picking Sister Location apart to definitively put together which details matter and why this is such a monumental game for the franchise's lore. So go ahead, keep your plots vague and convoluted, Scotty boy. I'm here to translate your madness to the world. First off, who are we playing as? Historically, the protagonists of Freddy's games have had a varying degree of importance. There are those like Mike and Fritz who, for all we can tell, were just names with the sole purpose of filling out the 2 line on a paycheck. Sure, they may have been retconned into some importance now, but they were never really intended to be that way. Then there was the crying child of FNAF 4, hospitalized and trapped in a waking nightmare. Slightly more important, I would hazard to say. And the game recognizes this as, during your first encounter with the new animatronic baby, she calls out,
"It's a strange thing to want to do, to come here. I'm curious what events would lead a person to want to spend their nights in a place like this. Willingly. Maybe curiosity, maybe ignorance."
Answering the question of who you play as in Sister Location is more important than any of the rest of the games in the franchise, since it practically dictates every other element of this story. why you're there, what the endings mean, what this location stands for, how this fits into the overall timeline. It's a big deal. Now personally, based on the silhouette in the mirror, my first guess is to say that we're playing as Rick Astley, and Scott is just committing the most elaborate Rick roll in history.
Oh, come on.
This is getting exciting.
I mean, just look at that hair. It's an exact match. And let's face it, Scott has proven that he's not above trolling us. But assuming he has a little bit more respect for the fan base than that, there can only be one possible conclusion here. In sister location, we play as William Afton. Purple guy himself. And no, I'm not just saying that because the eyes in the ending are purple, like literally everyone else on the internet's been saying. Sure, it's a nice detail that may hint at Scott's intentions, but it's not proof. For proof, we begin by turning to the in-game dialogue. On your quest to unlock the game's fake ending, the animatronics taunt you with these little bits of dialogue, spoken by a young girl in a British-sounding accent.
I'm still here. Isn't this why you came here? To be with her again.
So we know that whoever the player is has some sort of connection to this mysterious young girl. But who is she? Well, throughout the game, between nights, we hear the same girl pressing her father to let her play with babies, saying things like,
Daddy, just once let me go play with her. She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
From that small snippet, we can not only tell that our character is her father, but that he's also in some way the creator, or has some level of control over the animatronics. This in turn narrows the field down by quite a bit to two men, William Afton and Henry, no last name given, the two co-founders of Fazbear Entertainment as introduced in fnaf Silver Eyes. By the way, low blow, Scott, forcing people to read in order to have any sort of clue as to what's going on in the franchise now. But seriously, without reading the book, you would have no clue the importance of William Afton. Oh well, that's what I'm here for. I read it so you don't have to. Kind of like the nostalgia critic. Anyway, based on the girl's accent and William Afton's similar dialect at the beginning of the game,
You have no
She
idea.
can sing. She's equipped with built-in helium tech for inflating balloons right at her fingertips.
it would seem as though we have ourselves a match.
You are the
Now, let's not be too hasty there, Maury. We're even more sure. In the game's real ending, you get yourself tricked, becoming animatronic fodder as machines scoop out your internal organs and replace them with endoskeleton boards. Now, this really bothers me since it's like the antithesis of what we expect from our stories when we beat the game. Here I am wanting to finish my night and return home with my basket of exotic butter, but no, that's reserved for the fake ending. Becoming a flesh suit is somehow canon to the series. I wanted to write it off as jumping the shark, like, hey, we're getting a little bit too absurd right now, but then I realized that this is a franchise built on haunted animatronics chasing you through a pizza restaurant after they've been killed by a serial killer hiding in a mascot suit filled with killer springs. So, crossing the line of absurdity? Yeah, I think we're long past it at this point. Becoming a flesh suit is an oddly specific event to be integral to the lore, and yet, there it is. So we're left with two options. Scott's either completely lost it at this point, or he has some other plans for this character. And indeed, he does. As the novel once again shows us why this odd story turn is so important. In its pages, we're treated with all sorts of lines that make it clear Mr. Afton is the one who gets himself stuffed. Page 407. Quote, Charlie, there's something different about it. It was as if the guard, the man they had met, had been stripped away, and what sat before them was nothing but a blank canvas. End quote. And again, 2 pages later, quote, Dave is the fake name for William Afton in the novel. He's hiding out in another identity. Long story. Anyway, let's go with it. Dave's body moved upward, straightening. The movement was too smooth. He seemed to make no effort, use no muscles, and exert no energy. Dave's eyes opened steadily, glassy, and without emotion, like the robots on the stage outside. End quote. And there you have it. That totally just spelled it out for us, didn't it? Like the robots on the stage outside. In fact, the book makes a huge deal about Afton's eyes. Over and over again. Like when the character John describes seeing Afton kidnap his friends on pages 120 to 122. Quote, the eyes. They were all I could see. They were dead. Just dull and flat. Like they still moved and blinked and saw, but whatever was behind them had died a long time ago. End quote. Died a long time ago, you say. Perhaps in an underground murder bunker, doubling as a robotic distribution center, perhaps. And real quick, let's pause here and have some real talk to Ennard, Baby, and the gang. Guys, we're gonna have a bit of an intervention here. If your goal is to blend in with the outside world and look like us, look like any other human, choosing to go with the purple eyes is not gonna be helping your cause all that much. Artificial intelligence, more like artificial idiots. Do your homework. Humans don't tend to have purple eyes. I mean, seriously, you have a blue-eyed animatronic just waiting to go. Look, there's Foxy. He has brown/orange eyes. Great.
That
Anyway,
was a Markiplier.
Maybe we're all just left to assume that Afton walks around in those cool colored contacts. Anyway, it's not just the eyes that give away Afton as the animatronic's meat puppet. His overall physicality has undergone a drastic change over the years as well. On page 418, we hear that Afton started off robust and lively, a hefty man who had the ruddy geniality of a financially shrewd Santa Claus. Financially shrewd Santa Claus, huh? No one said the writing of this book was any good. There's clearly a reason why only 500 people made it all the way through this book. And I say that because on Amazon Kindle, they actually show you the most popular highlighted sections, and like, they all drop off by midway through the book, so I can only assume that I'm the only person who made it all the way through. The things I do for you. Anyway, soon after our financially shrewd Santa Claus is accused of murder, he's released due to no bodies being found, and then he skips town. However, when he comes back, he's a changed person. Quote, Afton had been fat and affable. The man in the picture was sallow and thin, his skin sagging, and his expression unpleasant, as if he had forgotten how to smile. He looked like a poor facsimile of himself. End quote. So when he
That's because he got sprain locked. He survived the sprain lock. That's why his eyes were glassy and he was thinner because it like crunched down on him. Didn't they say that in the book?
back to town, he's not only lost his but he looks like a poor copy of himself. So that's us reading the subtext of his line, and you don't even have to read between those lines. Afton tells us directly in the quote I used at the top of this episode. Quote, and what makes you think they won't kill you? John said again. Because I'm one of them, he said. I mean,
Because he was wearing the mask.
let's face it, it is hard to argue with that one. He is outright saying he is an animatronic. Reading the book the first time, you all assume it's like, oh, he has a kindred spirit with these animatronics because he loves them so much and he dresses as one and this and that. But oh no! After playing Sister Location, it takes on a whole new meaning. Now, there are two major complaints against the Afton theory. One, that Baby's first lines are,
I don't recognize you. You are new.
and two, that none of it makes sense if Afton bleeds out in Springtrap in FNAF 3. But there's an easy answer for both these situations. First, think back to the FNAF world ending, where Desk Guy, who in our last episode we established as Henry No Last Name Given, William Afton's partner in the Freddy Fazbear's franchise, confesses to building Baby. He's the creator, the one Baby would be most familiar with, and not necessarily Afton. So Baby not recognizing Afton isn't all that much of a stretch. And regarding Purple Guy's death, we see in the book that William is covered in scars. Scars left over from surviving one major round of Springtrap failures. Quote, David had been shirtless under the costume, and now his bare chest was clearly visible. His skin was horribly scarred, with raised white lines that scored his flesh in a symmetrical...
Which, you literally admit it. Whatever. At least now we know that, yeah.
pattern, each side of his body mirroring the other. He raised his arms and turned slowly in a circle, giving Carlton ample time to see that the scars were everywhere. Also note that we never actually see Springtrap die in FNAF 3, just collapse into his own blood and shiver there. The light never drains from his eyes. And Silver Eyes shows that it's not only possible, but that William has indeed survived a Springlock failure in the past. So could the FNAF 3 incident be the reason he has all those scars in the book? Absolutely. Also, according to the timelines given by Sign Up, all of the events of Silver Eyes take place in 1995, placing it long after any events that we've seen in the games thus far, with the exception of Fazbear's Fright, which may have been a hallucinogenic dream sequence anyway. So all in all, cool story, bro. We play as Purple Guy in Sister Location.
Thank you for selecting Casual Bongos.
But why? What does all this mean for the plot of the game? It actually explains a lot, but from here it also tends to get really complicated. Because now we're digging into the FNAF 4 surveillance footage, FNAF 4 locations being tied to Sister Location, child experimentation, and the identities of Baby and Ennard. So instead of rushing my way through it to get it all done in time, I'm gonna pause right here and hold all those explanations for the next episode. Now that we know who's playing the game, we need to to know why and how it affects the rest of the series as we know it. Use that basket of exotic butter to subscribe and be informed of when the next half of this theory comes out. And in the meantime, listen to these casual bongos and do me a favor and vote. Sister Location, yay or nay? Was this the game that you were waiting for, or did it end up under-delivering? Click on what to choose, and I'll let you know next time how y'all voted. And in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Does anyone ever going to tell the truth about what's happening here? Are we saying there's a chance we destroy the world? Oppenheimer, theaters July 21st, rated R.
That doesn't look too bad.
Hello, Internet.
Welcome to Game Theory.
7 million theorists strong. And a lot of that is thanks to this franchise. More often than not, when I talk to people about their favorite episodes of this series, it's these. Young, old, it doesn't matter. The FNAF series was their first introduction. So I always feel a lot of pressure on these videos to deliver in a big way. You know, looking back, they're some of my personal favorites. Not only am I proud of the final product, but I'm proud of what they represent. As the FNAF series has been a true team effort, branching out across every person who has ever touched this channel, spanning every editor who's ever worked on an episode of Game Theory, getting you loyal theorists involved with pitching theories, and covering every style of theory that I personally write, from more IRL episodes to more lore-based ones. We've used everything from books to spin-off titles, real-world math and science to source code analysis, teaser images, trailer hints, and even US trademark data. Looking across this series, it's incredible the breadth that we've gone to. And to think, I almost never covered this series to begin with. It was going to be Slender, but then you guys, you loyal theorists, encouraged me to look into it. All based on a simple Twitter poll. You guys made it happen, and the rest is history. You know how life goes sometimes. Anyway, like I said, I feel a lot of responsibility with these episodes, and I think today is my favorite of the whole series. Because now we finally have all the pieces necessary to tell a coherent plot. It's not just some corpse kids and silent puppets and mob murderers who don't say anything. We have personalities now, actual character, and most importantly of all, motivation. Motivations for why a serial killer would create a place like Sister Location. And believe it or not, the answer is actually quite sad. So the question of the day is, can a game make you feel sympathy for a child murderer? Because once you have the complete story, you might just see Purple Guy in a whole new light. One line across this entire franchise answers everything. I will put you back together. But before we get to all of that, let's back up a bit. Last time we established that William Afton, the Purple Guy himself, is who you play as in Sister Location, and the one who eventually gets himself scooped. We also established that he once had a daughter who got herself killed at the hands, or should I say at the metal claw grip, of Baby. But there is so much more hidden in this game than that. By playing through the game and unlocking Sister Location's secret private room, players get treated to a shocking Easter egg. By typing the date 1983 into the pad beside the monitors, the static blazes to life, revealing blurry footage of the FNAF 4 house, the plush trap hallway, Foxy's closet, and creepiest of all, the crying child's bed. We also get a clue as to how this is being done. Sitting there on the desk is none other than our good old friend, Psychic Friend Fredbear.
Here, he's there, he's everywhere. Who are you gonna call? Psychic Friend Fredbear.
A little less psychic this time, and a little more plush, cradling what appears to be a remote control. Now, many have said that this is a walkie-talkie, but it is, in fact, a camera control. Notice the buttons on top. Those are switchers, allowing you to switch between the different cameras you have placed in the environment. The wheel on the bottom presumably allows you to turn the cameras or potentially focus them. The Fredbears from FNAF 4 are just that. Fredbear plushes equipped with hidden security cameras, something mothers are using all the time these days to monitor their children. And and also getting themselves hacked while doing it. See also the Watch Dogs episode, Creepy Stuff. But that begs the question, why would anyone have remote monitoring of a child's bedroom programmed to run into a secret room in an underground animatronic storage facility? And also, why that house? Well, it's important to note that it's not just any house, it's a house that's connected to Circus Baby's rentals. You heard that right. Sister location is under the FNAF 4 house. During the Freddy Building Challenge, we're presented with a map of the facility. We see the entrance elevator, main hub area, and the various holding rooms branching out all around it. But what we also see, more faintly, are 3 other areas. Maps that should look pretty familiar to fans of this series. The plush trap hallway, the path to Fredbear's, and the crying child's bedroom from FNAF 4. No joke. Just like the vent system maps from previous games, the faded diagram would imply that all of this is located on a different level than sister location, i.e. above it. And as we can see, not just above it, but connected to it. In fact, while we were too busy freaking out over the ever-nearing Funtime Freddy, most gamers overlooked that as a part of that minigame, we were responsible for returning power to those areas of the map. They were even labeled Observation 1 and Observation 2. Observation? Observing what? Just gets creepier and creepier. Now, before you go saying that an underground facility attached to a house is far-fetched, it's actually something supported by the book in details I guarantee everyone overlooked while reading it. Page 118, our main character Charlie is outside her childhood home, which is also home to Henry, co-founder of Freddy's. While exploring her father's animatronic workshop, we get the following quote. She knelt again and put her hand on the ground, fishing around until she found a small screw in the bare dirt. She palmed it, then looked closer. There were small holes in the ground, exposed when she moved the loose dirt. Charlie ran her fingers over them, thoughtful, end quote. Tiny holes hidden under the dirt of an animatronic workshop, huh? It's an oddly specific detail that never gets mentioned again and never goes anywhere, but is one of those things that gets the theorist mind to tickle in. Because when I hear of mysterious holes in the ground in someone's private workshop, I think trapdoor. Hidden trapdoor. Or, more accurately, secret entrances. Could this be a hint as to a secret entrance in Henry's animatronic workshop into sister location? In fact, we can prove using more details from the book that it is still being used by Afton. Earlier in that same chapter, Scott makes sure to drop a few more hints that seemingly never go anywhere. But we all know Scott better than that, right? And now that we have sister location to reference, these little details start to make a whole lot more sense. Quote, the benches were there where her father had assembled and tweaked his inventions, but the materials, the blueprints, and the half-finished robots that were once crammed onto every surface had disappeared. Where are they? End quote. So we have missing blueprints and partially finished bots that have just disappeared, but it continues. Quote, Charlie, John said from across the workshop, he was in the dark corner. If the skeleton had been there, it could have reached out to touch him, but it's not there. Notice the italics here. This isn't something that we're doing for effect in the video. This is actually straight from the book. Time and time again, Scott and the team working on this book are emphasizing these lines, as though they're pointing to a greater mystery here, that someone has stolen these materials and are using them for their own devices, that they're hidden somewhere in this world. But it's a mystery that never gets solved within the pages of the book. But perhaps most importantly of all is a paragraph a few sentences later that pulls all these clues together and may finally give us an answer as to what is in the box. You know, the box. Quote, John was standing beside her father's toolbox, and he stepped away as she came over, giving her space. Charlie knelt down before it. It looked as if it had just been polished. It was made of dark, stained wood, glossy. All the tools were polished and clean. They looked as though they had just been used that morning, wiped down and put away meticulously, like someone still cared for them. End quote. Stolen blueprints, missing robots, pristine tools, despite supposedly going unused for 10 years, hints at a trapdoor and William Afton lingering around the town in disguise. Quite simply, the pieces here add up. But again, that's hints that we can glean from the book. The bigger question here is, why would Afton be spying on the FNAF 4 house in the games? Well, because it's his. As we established last episode, you play as Purple Guy, and each night you go back to your retro-themed house. At first, these cutscenes seem like they should just be absurd breaks from the spoopy action of the main game.
Clear up. The baby isn't mine.
But look closer and you notice the details of the room. In particular, a very ugly lamp. A very ugly, very familiar lamp. One that we saw in, you guessed it, FNAF 4. In other words, this is Afton's house, and from his underground private room, he's observing his kids. Crying child, the older brother, and the girl who eventually becomes Baby. As I suspected in my prediction video for this game, this truly is a sister location. A sister's location. And from there, all the parts start to fit together. So let's retell this story from the beginning now that we have all the pieces. Remember what will happen if he catches you. It's a line we hear repeated over and over again throughout FNAF 4, and now we know why. Crying Child has seen Golden Bonnie abduct children multiple times in the past. This moment in the back room that we all debated about whether or not it was a murder is in fact a child kidnapping. Silver Eyes proves it as it shows that Purple Guy kills by trapping the kids in spring-lock suits. Quote, Carlton was wedged inside the heavy, barrel-shaped torso of a mascot costume, the headless top half of some kind of animal. His arms were trapped inside the torso section, pinned to his sides in an unnatural position. He could feel pieces of metal that pressed against his back and poked him. Dave said to Carlton, if you trigger those spring locks, two things will happen. First, all the locks will snap right into you, making deep cuts all over your body. And a split second later, all the animatronic parts they've been holding back will instantly be driven into your body. You'll die, but it will be slow. Having witnessed a scene similar to this, the boy is justifiably terrified, trying to avoid the pizzeria at all costs. But it's kinda hard when your father is one of the owners. Meanwhile, William Afton knows that he's been found out, hence the observation monitors and security Fredbears. He needs to be sure of his son's movements, even when he's at work, be it above ground or below. I mean, the guy may be a killer, but it's not like he could just kill his son, even if he was the witness to a gruesome murder at the restaurant. Afton's problem gets solved prematurely with the fatal chomp of 83, son William Love killed by the very animatronics he also loved, leading us to one fateful promise. I will put you back together. We've analyzed this line a lot in past theories because it's not only the final lines of FNAF 4 and FNAF World, thereby making it super important to this franchise, but because it's also presented to us in a different color than Fredbear's yellow. Someone else is talking here. And now we can finally pinpoint who said it, and more importantly, why. It was Afton. I will put you back together. A promise to fix his son, a broken son, in the only way that he knows how. Animatronics. Enter sister location in the Funtime animatronics, not built for entertainment or for being worn, but built to help Purple Guy save his son. Built for capture. Although no one has yet found how to unlock them in the game, if you dig through the sister location files, you find a set of blueprints for the various animatronics, outlining their size and special features. Not only are they enormous, topping 7 feet in some instances, certainly bigger than a small child, but they're also equipped with things like 360-degree tracking, parental voice mimicking, and storage tanks. Look closer at the wireframes and you see that the storage tank isn't quite empty. Yeah, that's a child in there, curled up, hidden in Fredbear's stomach, captured alive, ready to be experimented on. Because Purple Guy is no longer killing to satisfy himself. He's doing it to recover his son, to figure out the secret of fusing souls into animatronics. You heard me. Afton wants to unlock the mystery of giving gifts, giving life. And if that seems like a stretch, just look at the number of sentient, independent, and fully aware robots in sister location. You not only have the core set, but there's also the baby babies and the mini Renas. Tens of sentient animatronics moving against their programming. And unlike past games where we received explanations like anti-criminal systems, dying guys in murder suits, or the products of a nightmare, here they just kinda exist. Why? Well, Baby tells us over and over in the trailer for Sister Location. Before the game's release, we had no idea, but now we do know what they've been through. Experiments and controlled shocks. Dozens. And I mean dozens of children captured as the Funtime animatronics executed on the programming that told them to collect. Also that Afton could learn the secret to reawakening lost souls. As we see in Silver Eyes, he knows it's possible as he's not shocked at all when the animatronics come to life at night. Quote, "They're home with me." Dave's voice was coarse, and the large mascot head slid forward and tilted as he spoke. Their happiest day. All they know is that you're here, trying to take away their happiest day. You You are intruders, end quote. And as evidenced by the animatronics crawling throughout Sister Location, he succeeds in his goal. But in doing so, he pays the ultimate price, losing the second of his children, his daughter, when she ignores his warnings to stay away from the robots. A daughter whose soul goes on to possess Baby, as evidenced by the eye color shift from blue in the minigame to green in all the other times that we ever get to see Baby. Now flash forward to the beginning of Sister Location, a place where, as we're told in the trailer, memories sleep, anger is restless, and secrets don't keep. The children's spirits are mad and eager to get out, but how does a ragtag group of sentient robots escape? Even if they made it to the surface, giant endoskeletons roaming around would be like the coming of Terminator 2, and humans don't take kindly to that sort of thing. And so they've been forced to concoct a sneakier plan to escape. They put together their individual abilities often programmed into them, like Freddy's voice mimic and Melora's misdirection tactics, to create a new entity, the collective consciousness known as Ennard, a tangle of wires and eyeballs that serves as their final hope. And we know it's all animatronics together because it refers to itself as we.
There is nowhere to go when we look like this.
As the teaser said, there was a part of him in every body. After all, throughout the 5 nights, Ennard uses those various skills and pretends in order to gain our trust, using the voice mimic to sound like Baby, be sympathetic, adopting the voice of the little green-eyed girl to make us compelled to move forward and save her. But it's all a trick, and by night 5, they've cleared out all the evidence, killing the other technicians so that no one can speak of the haunted animatronics. But note that those guys haven't been scooped. They've saved that honor specifically for you, the purple guy. The reason they're stuck there in the first place. Using Baby's voice, they push you into the scooping room, remove your skeleton, and inhabit your body. And as we see in the final scene, their escape is successful. The purple guy, a serial killer father trying to put his son back together, is killed by the exact monsters he first created. But not in an unhappy way. He achieved what he wanted, being reunited with his children. Page 411 of Silver Eyes. Quote, the voice of the rabbit is smooth and rich, almost musical. Dave cocked his head to the side so that only one of his bulbous eyes could peer through the sockets. We both wanted to love, he said in those melodious tones. Your father loved, and now I have loved. End quote. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Super Amazing Cartoons. Where last time I asked you whether you thought Sister Location was scary good or frighteningly bad. Survey said 97,000 votes for Sister Location and 30,000 against. So it looks like y'all felt that Scott got his groove back with this one. The follow-up question for today, which animatronic is your favorite? Maybe it's the scariest, maybe it's the one you most identify with, maybe it's the one you're most excited about yipping. Hey, no judgment here. You yell and sniff all you want. Whatever your reasoning, just click on one. At this point, there's like 1,000, so let's just narrow it down to the essentials, and you can include all versions of that character. So here we go. Your options are Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy/Mangle, Golden Freddy/Fredbear, Springtrap, and Baby. Apologies to all you Balloon Boy and Melora fans out there. Seriously though, are you out there? Seems like those two in particular just don't fit in anywhere. Anyway, click on one of the options to cast your vote. Once you're done, you have 2 options. Number 1, go and check out the FNAF playlist on the channel. Binge watch that sucker because honestly, it's a lot of fun to look back at those old theories and see just how far we've all evolved in our thinking about this game. It's just like a little time capsule.
I don't know
You're
what
like,
the last
oh yeah,
was.
I remember when there was only 4 animatronics and everyone was like, whoa, Golden Freddy is blowing my mind right now. Or option 2, if you're looking for a break from FNAF, might I recommend to you Salad Fingers over on the Film Theory channel. Seriously, if you like FNAF, then
When you have auto blast damage, trust safely.
Okay, so that last one was, I don't know. I think we're starting to get out of the classic FNAF theories that I liked. That one was starting, I think we're starting to get to like the, I don't know, the ones I don't care much for.
We can replace your windshield.
Father, it's me, Michael. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come for
Michael Eggs Benedict, Afton, Purple Guy, Jingleheimer, Schmidt, but I am not spending another 20 minutes trying to piece together whether you're Springtrap, whether you're Purple Guy, whether you're a second Purple Guy, and whether all of this requires yet another rewrite of the timeline. I am not doing it. At least not until the next book comes out in June. Nope, no siree doggo. Today, the series that prompted lore-based theories to flood this channel is getting the old school game theory treatment. That's right. Today, I'm tackling the science of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Was that the original intro?
Prime Day is here with 2 days of epic deals exclusively for Prime members. You'll feel like a big deal.
Hello, Internet.
Welcome to Game Theory,
where today's Freddy theory is going to be a bit different. No source code deep dives, no rooting around for obscure hidden Easter eggs, only hardcore real-life research. Oh, but speaking of the source code, something really fascinating is going on right now. Scott Cawthon's 2 websites are having a conversation. Scott Games is saying things like, "You're crowding us. You can't tell us what to do anymore. We outnumber you." And the FNAF World website is replying with, "Be quiet. Yes, I can. You will do everything that I tell you to do." Which makes it seem like FNAF 6, Sins of the Father, it's my title, feel free to use it, Scotty C, is gonna be like an all-out animatronic Civil War-style battle against the OG creator William, aka Springtrap Afton. How awesome would that be? Title, gameplay, boom, done. Feel free to use that idea as well. Meanwhile, in other FNAF updates, since a lot of you have been asking me on Twitter about my thoughts on this, the movie got itself canceled and then found itself a new production partner, Blumhouse Productions, the same guys who did Paranormal Activity, Oculus, The Purge, Get Out. Honestly, I think it's great news. Blumhouse has made a name for themselves by doing awesome movies on really teeny tiny budgets, and FNAF as an indie franchise needs that cheaply made indie vibe to really make it scary. It doesn't need a big studio like Warner Brothers, where it used to be going in and meddling and trying to make it more family friendly so they can go in and sell more FNAF toys and it becomes the next Minions or something. Low budget is the way to go because it forces you to get creative. So this news actively made me excited for the movie. A video game movie based on FNAF. Seriously, all the subs to film theorists better get themselves ready for a heaping helping of Freddy when that movie rolls around. Anyway, enough updates. I think that covers all the FNAF related things that you guys have been asking me about on Twitter. On to the episode. This week I'm covering a topic I've wanted to do since the release of FNAF 4 back in 2015 and never had the opportunity to because I was always so busy trying to piece together the damn lore, and that is, can an animatronic actually kill you? Since, you know, this series has a lot of animatronics, and a whole lot of death at the hands of animatronics. But more specifically, I want to focus on the bite. You know the one I'm talking about. Whether or not you believe this moment to be the bite of 83 or the bite of 87, whether or not the date really even matters anymore, one thing is clear. This is the moment that set in motion everything else in these games. Based on the evidence coming from 6 games and the Silverized book, William Afton, creator of the animatronics, suffers this tragedy where his son's head gets crushed in a childhood bullying incident. A few days later, the son dies of his wounds in his hospital bed, setting in motion Afton's quest to, quote, put him back together. Cut to scoopings, sister locations, a dead daughter, and more missing children than you can shake a basket of exotic butters at, and all because of this one moment. The bite is treated as a freak accident, something that couldn't have been helped. The horrific ending of an innocent childhood prank gone wrong. A series filled with haunted puppets and reincarnated skin suits starts with this. Just a random tragic incident that nobody could have stopped. A simple mechanical failure. Remember, this is before any of the suits are haunted. It's still just a regular old animatronic. But is that really true? Does a regular old animatronic actually have the ability to crush a child's skull? Or is there something a bit more sinister going on here? Let me just say this. I will never look at my last sister location theories the same way again. And it's all thanks to the results of this episode's research. To begin to piece together the real danger these Disney rejects pose, we need to understand what makes them so dangerous in the first place. Sure, it might be easy to assume that Golden Fredbear and Golden Bonnie here are so deadly because they're spring-lock suits, but as we hear about in FNAF 3's Ghost Mode, the locks are only used to hold back the sharp, pointy innards so they could be worn in suit mode.
To change the animatronics to suit mode, insert and turn firmly the hand crank provided by the manufacturer.
close and personal during night 4 of FNAF's sister location. The spring locks hold back the robotic innards, and them unsnapping and releasing the mechanism is what makes them so deadly. But during FNAF 4's Bite, Golden Freddy is already in robot mode. There would be no spring locks activated. They would not be snapping shut. To put it simply, the robot is operating like any normal animatronic would be, meaning that the danger is coming not from some weird, unique detail of FNAF-verse-style robots, but rather from the same mechanisms that exist in any animatronic, be it in a fictional pizzeria to the creepy remnants of Big Bear Jamboree heads looking down at you from the Winnie the Pooh ride in Disneyland. Go ahead, look it up. There's some nightmare fuel for you. Or better yet, if you're at Disneyland leaving the Heffalump and Woozle section of the ride, look behind you and look up. Oh, prepare for a surprise. Anyway, all things considered, to truly unwrap this theory, we need to know how normal animatronics actually work. Enter a man named Vern Grainer, an engineer who used to build robots for Chuck E. Cheese. Turns out, how these things are built is actually a closely guarded trade secret, because I can pronounce my awas. But in an article he did for Nuts and Bolts magazine back in 2009, he confirmed that almost every entertainment robot on the planet is built from one core technology: pneumatic actuators. What are those? Well, yo, listen up then. Ya homies know that when all the sickest ballers want to pimp out their bangin' rides, yo, they install hydraulic lifts in their undercarriage, like Ramon from the Cars movie? Well, where hydraulics use oil and fluid dynamics to do that sweet lifting, yo, pneumatics use air pressure. You build up a bunch of air pressure and then release it. That release moves whatever you want. A piston, a pulley, the deadly grin of a lifeless singing bear. They're used in everything from robots to build cars to the jaws of, well, Jaws at Universal Studios. Now, Grainer doesn't specify how powerful pneumatic actuators in a Chuck E. Cheese-style robot's mouth would be, but we can go ahead and calculate a rough estimate. Whereas other actuators in the body and legs would have to be more powerful since they're moving larger, heavier chunks of robot, the ones in the mouth are smaller, more delicate. They only have to move a couple of ounces of plastic and metal for the jaws, teeth, and cheeks. The pneumatic tubes themselves are also only a couple inches long, meaning that they can only build up so much air pressure. All things considered, you're only going to need about 40 psi of air pressure max to do all of that. That's not a whole lot. It's like the pressure created from a strong breeze. So how the heck do a handful of small pistons powered by air create enough force to crack a child's skull wide open? They can't. You see, crushing a human skull ain't easy. The 22 bones of the human skull are there to protect the most important organ in our body from damage. And the whole thing has got a rounded structure to help disperse any forces applied to it. The strongest boxer in the world could punch you in the head at full force and it barely crack. But this perfectly normal Chuck E. Cheese wannabe not only cracks the crying child's head, but breaks through hard enough to cause severe trauma to the brain? How much force is needed to do that? Well, it's actually a tricky question. First, we gotta ask, how old is the victim? When you're first born, the skull is softer, moldable, since, you know, it has to pass through narrow lady bits. Once it's made that journey, it has to be able to accommodate for your growing brain. So it has these soft spots called fontanelles to give the skull flexibility. So I immediately thought that our crying child birthday boy might be a bit easier of a nut to crack considering how young he is, but the research didn't pan out that way. The soft spots disappear or ossify by the time that you're 9 to 18 months old. And I don't care how heartless of a killer you are, purple guy, you ain't letting your 1-year-old hobble his way home after a day of sitting terrified in a broom closet. Second, to answer the question I had to ask, what parts of the skull are we talking about? Because different sections have different thicknesses and, as a result, different strengths. According to research done by Tobias Matei, who studied children's bike helmets and how they protect the skull, the thinnest region of the skull bone is about where your temples are. Lo and behold, that's exactly where our crying child is seeing most of the damage done. When he's placed in Golden Fredbear's mouth by the bullies, he's facing outward towards us, mostly facing the camera, meaning that the weaker sides of his skull are the ones that are having to deal with the crushing forces of the teeth. So I looked it up. To fracture the skull there would require the equivalent of a 1,100-pound man or 500-kilogram woman, equal opportunity not being sexist here, to step on the head in that exact spot. But then again, that's just to have the thing fracture. We're talking about a catastrophic head failure that impacts the brain. So we have to get a bit more specific and a bit harder of a bite. Luckily, I found a study looking into exactly that. Testing over 300 samples, some scientific madmen determined that human skull bone, when put under various kinds of stress, had a failure pressure of 1900 psi or 13 megapascals. 13 megapascals means that for every square meter of surface area, it takes 13 million newtons of force to break a skull open. Now, obviously, that number is hard to imagine without me giving you a real-world example of what it feels like. The challenge, though, is to accurately represent that pressure, we need to know how that pressure is being delivered. If I'm delivering a lot of pressure onto a small point, it's going to do a lot more damage than if I deliver that same amount of pressure across a wider surface area. Think of it like the difference of stepping onto a single nail versus laying on a bed of nails. One's a bloody good party trick, the other is just bloody. So think about it this way. 1 megapascal of pressure is about the pressure of an average human bite. We're talking 13 times that. That is a lot of pressure. And in our case, that pressure is being delivered by small animatronic teeth clamping down on either side of the crying child's head. So a whole lot more like that single nail example than the bed of nails. But to find out just how powerful and deadly these teeth are, we're gonna need one thing: pixel measurements. We need to know the surface area of Freddy's teeth so that we can figure out how much force minimum those teeth are delivering. Now, obviously, we're gonna have to approximate a bit since the game contains no real measurements to go off of, so instead I started with Freddy's face. It's an Easter egg I never really addressed in the theories, but way back in vanilla FNAF 1, lots of theorists were talking about an oddly shaped smudge on Freddy's face. This smudge is in the shape of a handprint. Now granted, it isn't a golden suit, but as we see in that game, the two are comparable in size. Given that the average human hand is about 18.89 centimeters long, we can use this handprint to scale everything else. Freddy's head then is 32 centimeters wide, or about twice as wide as an adult human's head, which makes a lot of sense. You need something big enough to serve as a costume. Now, using a combination of images from different angles, we can use this to determine the dimensions of one tooth, which comes to 1.4 square centimeters. It looks like he was bitten with 8 teeth. 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. This gives us a total surface area of 11.26 square centimeters. So, using the power of math, we can use this figure to determine how much force each tooth is biting down with. And that number is bone-chilling. 14,758 newtons. Why is that a bone-chilling number? Because that's the strength that a full-grown crocodile bites with. It's almost the strength of a great white shark bites. In order to deliver that amount of force, you would need 2 high-end industrial-strength pneumatic actuators. These things are as long as your arm and they need their own dedicated compressors pumping out 100 pounds per square inch. I mean, your own teeth would crack if you bit down with that kind of force. And it is most certainly way overkill for moving the mouth of some cheap mascot at a sad sack themed restaurant. It's almost like someone built these things to intentionally be deadly. And there, ladies and gentlemen, our smoking gun. When we last covered the lore of this series, myself, as well as other FNAF theorists like Treesicle and Dawko, concluded that William Afton was driven to his murderous rampage by tragic circumstances. His son was killed in the jaws of that machine, and so he dedicated his life to twisted experimentation on other children to bring his son back. Sure, it doesn't mean that William Afton kidnapping and killing tons of kids is okay, but it does make us sympathize with him a little. He was driven to madness by this immense sadness. But if all this science today is truly correct, it proves that he was a madman all along. That even in the earliest days of Fredbear's Family Diner, William was making suits designed to kill, with mechanisms way overpowered for what they were meant to do. Any normal animatronic would have left the crying child with a few scratches, maybe some psychological scars, but that's about it. He'd be alive. But Afton, being the psychopath that he is, had other intentions. Not only did he create a deadly system with the spring locks, but even the basic robotics of his mascots were built to kill. Something that he would continue to do throughout his career, particularly with the Funtime series. We all thought it was a freak accident that killed Afton's son, but at the end of the day, this death was completely avoidable. It was all Afton's fault. He only has his own twisted experiments to blame, claiming first his son and eventually his daughter too. Man, I gotta say, that really bites. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. 6 whole months since the FNAF theory? Wow. Time flies. It's actually really nice to cover the series again with fresh eyes. I even figured out some new lore bits while working on this one. Stuff that I'm sure will show up in the next FNAF theory coming this summer. So if you haven't done it yet, make sure that you bite down hard on that subscribe button in 3, 2, 1, crunch. And hey, might I recommend clicking the video that you see on screen right now? It's actually the first video that I did on FNAF. It's actually really interesting to see how the series have changed in that amount.
That one was good. I like that. I like that one. Oh, I just realized, are we gonna be watching... let's skip all of the science of games. Videos, I mean. I don't know why I said games, but... Yeah, let's just skip all of... No live streams, and no the science of. So, yeah, let's get...
Coaches, no nonsense, all business. Coaches never call up the JV and expect an MVP performance. Supercut stylists take more reps than the competition. Honestly, could this many coaches be wrong? Supercuts, real smart hair.
Good news and bad news. Bad news, Jimmy John's wraps are back.
What's the good news?
They are numbing in my tummy.
Okay.
A horde of the Balloon Boys emerged from the cave, shaking back and forth on unsteady feet, their pointed teeth chattering loudly as they wobbled forward with staring eyes. Not again! I hate these things, Jessica cried. You and me both, sister! You and me both! Up top! Can I vibe you up top because you're a fictional character? Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where... Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. FNAF 6 is canceled. Looks like I had more staying power than you, Scotty C. Let's be honest though, it's gonna be more delayed than canceled, really. And there's still the movie, the merch, a second book just released, a third book coming soon, and a fourth one on the way. So just like the animatronics, the series itself keeps getting reborn in new forms with increasingly absurd names. Lizard Freddy, Nightmare Chica, Not So Fun Time Franchise. Speaking of ridiculous new names for the same old cast of animals, let's talk about the latest addition to the roster, the Twisted Animatronics. Stars of the new FNAF book that came out at the end of June. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this book was definitely a step up from the first. It had 200 less pages. Oh, Sigmund, y'all! You need a calendar, man! I mean, don't take that as too high of a compliment. In 200 pages, you still had a college robotics major going to the scene of a murder and then touching the victim, getting blood all up on her hands, and no one on the police force even batted an eye over the blatant crime scene tampering that was happening. Then there's the fact that in the book, multiple balloon boys, including BB, JJ, and whatever other ridiculous combination of letters you can come up with, are canon too.
true. But you know what? I still gotta appreciate lines like page 183. You never know when a corpse may wander out of the shadows wearing a rabbit suit. Even the books have become self-aware of their own absurdity at this point. Now, at this point, Scott has made it clear that the books and the games are separate canons. And while that may be true, both are still shambling their way out of Scott's mind brain. We all know that Scott leaves plenty of holes in his stories. Details or events that are left purposefully vague so that we can theorize to fill in those gaps. But what's interesting is that he leaves different holes in each series. And by looking at the two series in tandem, those holes start to fill themselves in with events from the sister series. The sister location! No, just no. Anyway, reading Twisted Ones was like reading the crib notes for Sister Location, because a lot, and I mean a lot, of that game's weirdness became more and more clear as I turned more and more pages. So FNAF 6 may be dead, but we're gonna go back to beat the dead horse animatronic that is Sister Location. Can we name it Horsey? Horsey, the dead horse animatronic, and we just beat it every time we do an episode about one of these games? Great. Dead horse animatronic Horsey one final time, because thanks to the Twisted Ones, we have all the information we need to help that game make just a little bit more sense. First, how do we know that this book is anywhere close to related to Sister Location? Well, it's easy. The answer's in the title, The Twisted Ones. The recurring threat in the book are these so-called twisted animatronics. But even though we're supposed to think that this is a new breed of killer robot, they're not. Not at all, in fact. We've seen them before in Sister Location. Check out this description and let me know if it sounds familiar. Page 90. The creature had no fur, and its face was smooth. It had a short muzzle and oval ears sticking out from the sides of its head. It had the general appearance of an animal's head, though much larger than the animatronic animals from Freddy's. Running down the center of its face was a long, straight split, exposing wires and a line of metal frame. A thick plastic material was stuck to the face in large patches. So the twisted animatronics have a plastic-like covering and a face that splits open. It certainly sounds like the aesthetic of the Funtime animatronics, but it doesn't stop there. These guys were built to be big because their mission is to capture children. Like Pokeballs, out for revenge. Page 140. Freddy's face slid across the bed like a python. His head lost its shape as it folded outward, taking hold of her feet and beginning to swallow, moving slowly upward as she fought not to scream or fight, his cheeks and chin dislocating further. It no longer resembled a living thing. Before she could struggle further, her arms were pinned to her side, trapped inside the thing. Only her head remained free. She gasped for a last breath, then was violently scooped up, consumed by the creature. She done got scooped. Then, a few pages later, she was inside a cavity made for a human being, but the suit was moving with complete autonomy. In case you've forgotten, this is exactly what we see in Sister Location's hidden animatronic blueprints. Oversized robots with special containment features to lure in and trap small children. Even the description for how people get scooped into the animatronics is reminiscent of Sister Location's horrific ice cream minigame with Baby. Page 92. The animatronic's arms lifted and its chest opened like an iron gate. Its metal pieces slid out of place to reveal a dark, gaping pit where sharp spikes and spring locks were just barely visible. It was a trap, waiting to be triggered. She beat against its bent and damaged arm, but the other arm steadily forced her closer to the chest cavity. So why does any of this, and the Twisted Ones as a whole book, matter in the context of the FNAF games? Well, in the opening sequence of Sister Location, we hear that the Funtime animatronics were built by William Afton.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
A guy who, up to that point in the series, had only been named in the first book, Silver Eyes. By the end of the book, we learn that William is Purple Guy, the killer who kidnaps kids while wearing a golden Bonnie suit. But Silver Eyes also introduced us to other important characters for the FNAF series as a whole, including Henry, no last name given, William's partner and the more creative half of the company, the one who actually created the animatronics. So after reading Silver Eyes, we were left with William, the business guy who doesn't create robots but does kill children, and Henry, the creator who does create robots but doesn't kill children. Got all that? Good. Now, in my FNAF 5 Decoded video, I drew parallels between Henry and a mysterious figure that we saw during a secret cutscene of FNAF World, both of whom create animatronics and commit suicide. Long story short, in the game, he ends his own life because he created Baby, a robot that he's ashamed of. In the book, why Henry kills himself is still a big part of the mystery. Now, if you want more information about the parallels between these two characters, click the eye icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen because I go more in-depth there. But after that video,
video, it seemed like a lock. We finally had some solid leads as to who these key players in the games were, and the clues were coming from Silver Eyes. But then that opening cinematic from Sister Location played the first time we all booted up the game. Afton acknowledged that he was the one who created the new robots. And everyone, including myself, was like, well, there went that theory. Afton was supposed to be the business guy, not the creator. So if he's the one who builds animatronics in the game, then Henry must not exist in this universe. Scott had pulled the wool over my eyes, or at least retconned huge parts of his story to keep me off the scent once again. Except not. The theory was right the first time. The Twisted One's book confirms that both Henry and William Afton create animatronics, with the originals being built by Henry and the Twisted Funtime style animatronics being Afton's. On page 92 of the Twisted Ones, we see the main character Charlie, daughter of Henry, talking about one of these new animatronics. Whoa, the hardware, the joints, it's older technology. Maybe he made them earlier? I don't know. I recognize some of this as my dad's work, but then a lot of it's foreign to me. Someone else may have had a hand in it. I'm not sure if my dad made it or not, but I have a feeling he's the one who made it. Oh yeah. By the way, in the book, the Twisted animatronics bury themselves during the day and come out at night to nab people. Animatronic zombies. Why not? It is probably one of the things that makes more sense in the book, honestly. Anyway, it's continually hinted at throughout the book that these animatronics weren't built by Henry. My father wouldn't have used this. He always put stops so that the joints couldn't do things humans can't do. Then again, on page 113, the bear was frightening, misshapen, an imitation of Freddy created by someone else. It was a strange variation, in which her father had never breathed life, but William Afton, Dave, did. And then finally, William Dave, Baby Purple Guy, Springtrap Afton confirms it on page 186.
Did you think my robots would be as poorly designed as your father's?
So there you go. The original theory still stands. Henry and William can both be active players in the game universe because both build animatronics. And if you need even more evidence, then think about it this way. At the end of FNAF World, Henry admits that he created Baby, and then he kills himself ashamed of his creation. At the beginning of Sister Location, we see that Afton is still alive, he's claiming creation rights, and he's obviously proud of his new robots. Then, at the end of the game, his son Michael Afton says that he's gonna come find his father.
Father, it's me, Michael. I'm going to come find you.
Thus, William is still alive, Henry is dead, but both must be a part of these games. And that's an important detail to solidify because the book also confirms something that FNAF theorists have been speculating about since the release of Sister Location. One of the weirdest details from that game was hidden in Funtime Freddy's roof, where a map of FNAF 4's house was above and directly connected to the map of the Sister Location facility. It was also something that was hinted at throughout the Silver Eyes novel. Again, something that I covered in a previous theory, linked via those iCards in the upper right-hand corner. But Twisted Ones not only confirms this underground bunker for Sister Location exists, it also confirms whose house it's built under. Henry's. In the novel, we see the Twisted animatronics capture the main character Charlie, again, Henry's daughter, and drop her off in some remixed version of the FNAF 2 pizzeria. I say remixed because, like a lot of this book, it's a weird hybridization of things that happen in the games and other stuff. It's got the Carousel and Balloon Boys from the FNAF 2 location, but then there's a cave and a waterfall for some reason. Because why not? FNAF 7, Under the Sea! Earlier in the book, Charlie and her boyfriend John, who admittedly has to be the most patient and loving boyfriend in the history of the universe, like Charlie shows him no sense of affection and he is there just like a sad puppy dog. It is tragic. Anyway, those two go to visit Charlie's childhood home, which has been destroyed by a storm. And what they find is that the storm has broken down a wall to reveal a new room. A secret room hidden in their house that Charlie had never known about. Whoa, that's not even part of the house. I've never seen this room before. The walls were made of dark concrete, and the room was small and windowless. A box jammed into the house and sealed away beneath the rooms. Whatever's out there killing people came from there. When the storm broke the wall, a section of the house was sealed until the storm broke through. But what's really important here is what's revealed when Charlie and the gang escape from that underground pizzeria I mentioned. On page 194, "We're out! We're okay!" "Oh, you see where we are?" she whispered. Slowly she walked the length of the room, gesturing to the 4 enormous pits in the floor, one of which contained a headless, half-buried robot. "John, this is my dad's house. It's the room we found." They escaped upward out of the underground pizzeria and wound up in Henry's house. So slowly the pieces start to fit together. Henry in the book buries and tries to seal off the Twisted animatronics and then commits suicide out of guilt for helping William to build these things in the first place. just like we see him do in FNAF 4. And just like we see the underground bunker underneath a normal everyday home in Sister Location. And I'm just
Wait, did you see that? Did you see that? Is that right?
Home in Sister Location. And I'm
Was
just getting
Matt?
started. Because while all this other information is certainly interesting, Twisted Ones exposed a detail from Sister Location so tiny and so minute that we all overlooked it in our excitement
Here we
over
go.
decoding underground storage facilities and tracking animatronic eye color. And yet, much like that infamous Chica Beak clue from FNAF 2 and 4, this small detail is so monumentally earth-shattering to the franchise as we know it that I can't not talk about it here. On Sister Location's Night 3, Michael Afton's big task is to remove a power module from Funtime Freddy. After following the narrator's instructions on which buttons to press and what order to press them in, Freddy's chest pops open and the power module reveals itself. And it's this little blinking black dot, oddly unconnected to literally anything else in the animatronic, and in a pretty unusual place, just kinda stuck on, slightly off to the side. I remember thinking at the time that this was an odd design choice for something that was supposedly powering the whole animatronic, but how would I know? No one, and I mean no one, called this thing out, considering Night 3 in general was just kind of forgettable, overshadowed by the misery that was the Spring Lock challenge on Night 4, and the fascinating map Easter eggs hidden on Night 2. But of course, this is FNAF, and no detail is too small in this series, and Twisted Ones blew the lid off this disc's true purpose. Its little mystery being so important that it's the reason they're called the Twisted Ones in the first place. Stick with me now, because I'm not making any of this up. That little device from Sister Location is actually a mind control disc. Pause for all the stunned gasps and requisite eye rolls.
Ugh.
Blame either of those reactions, let me explain. Throughout the book, anytime the twisted animatronics show up, people start to feel weird side effects. Page 91 and 92. As her hand touched the creature, a wave of nausea hit her, but it lasted only a split second. Something else about it had transformed at the same time. Its artificial skin took on a luminescence, and its movements were fluid and sure. Its casing suddenly appeared to have skin and fur, though they were blurry and flickering like a shirt in the light. Now, after destroying one of these twisted animatronics, Charlie and Boy Toy John discover a weird object embedded in the machine. Quote, it was a flat disc, about the size of a $50 coin. She held it up to her ear. Wow, that's really high pitched. I can barely hear it. The sound is why you feel sick. It emits some kind of signal. It changes what those things look like. It changes our perception of what they look like, Charlie corrected. Freddy's image flickered like static on a television screen. The color faded from his fur, and everything that made him Freddy winked out, leaving only a smooth plastic figure in his place. It looked like the rest of the animals in the room, a blank mannequin stripped of its characteristics. These aren't made out of fur and fabric. They're made by us, by twisting our minds. You shot the chip, you killed the illusion. Twisting our minds, you say. Roll credits!
Freddy was Bruce Willis. What do I watch here now?
Now, for as ridiculous as a small disc that emits sounds that gets your brain to change the way it perceives the world around you sounds, it's actually kind of based in scientific fact. The brain is constantly having to process tons of information, so it is always looking for shortcuts. For instance, if I show you this text, you're probably going to be able to read it really quickly, right? It's because the brain isn't reading text by individual letters, but rather by the context of the other words around it, the way it expects the sentence to go, and making guesses off the most frequent short words that it sees on a day-to-day basis. The same is generally true in visual perception. Without going into detail here, it's how optical illusions work, and there's been plenty of research on how the brain fills in visual gaps that it experiences. So the idea that a disc is shooting out sounds that distract you and thus cause your perception of reality to change to stuff that you're actually more familiar with isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. At At least not as far-fetched as robots haunted by dead children getting into an all-out rumble against other animatronics built to vor unsuspecting victims, which is literally a thing that happens in the climax of this book. Not to spoil it or anything. And of course, it probably goes without saying, but these little mind-controlled discs were created by none other than dear old dad, William Afton, age 99. There was writing along one edge. She had to bring the piece of plastic close to her face to make the letters out. They were tiny and written in an old-fashioned flowing script. They read Afton Robotics, LLC. Charlie dropped the disc immediately. William Afton. That's my father's old partner. That's Dave's real name, John finished. Thought he was just a business partner for Freddy's, she said slowly. I guess he did a bit more than that. So why and how does this matter in the context of the games? I actually think it has the potential to explain a lot. First, from the book. So the animatronics aren't changing shape, we're just being distracted. What's the purpose of that, though? To earn our trust, to look more friendly, to look more real, to lure kids closer. And that's something we definitely see at play throughout Sister Location. It was even in the hidden animatronic blueprint that we discovered. Weird technology put in place to lure and attract kids. Now, this is speculation, but remember Sister Location's secret control room that allowed us to observe the crying child's bedroom, as well as other key locations from FNAF 4? On the map, they were labeled as observation rooms. Could that be what William was observing? The effects of his mind-twisting discs on children? Could FNAF 4 not have been a dream, a nightmare, a hospital hallucination, whatever, but rather the twisted dreams generated by these distraction discs? But even beyond that, I think these discs explain a topic that I have actively avoided throughout all my theories on this series. The Phantom animatronics from FNAF 3. Remember way back to FNAF 3 when this was supposed to be the final boss battle? There was only one real animatronic out to get you, Springtrap. All the other main jump scares were hallucinations in a building that had a high-pitched whining noise the whole time. And especially when it came to the puppet attacking you.
The best ingredients, the best subs. Pan-station.com.
Weird that these hallucinations are happening around a time when there's high-pitched noises around, like these discs emanate. And notice that the ventilation in the game would only tend to drop after you had been scared, not before. It's as though these hallucinations aren't coming from a lack of oxygen, like Bone Dude says, but rather from some other source. A disc. A disc specifically designed to manipulate your mind and bring forward all the horrific memories that you have buried in it. And regardless of whether you think Springtrap is Michael Afton or William Afton, which is honestly a theory for a whole nother day, one thing you can't deny is that these discs, Springtrap, and the Afton family are all connected. Meaning that their use in a game where you're coming into direct contact with a giant golden bunny definitely makes a whole lot of sense. Could they also be the explanation for the other random Easter eggs we've seen throughout the series? The Lolbit mask, and the Mini Rena's random appearances in the control room of Sister Location. The Phantom Freddy and Phantom Bonnie from FNAF 2. I mean, the FNAF 2 location does make an appearance of sorts in the book, with the discs hidden in the lights of the building. Maybe even the hallucinations of It's Me way back in FNAF 1. The ramification of discs like this changes everything, and we physically see them present in Sister Location. So even if Scott is tired of the franchise, that doesn't mean it has to end without the answers that we've all been waiting for. You know what? I'm here for you to try and put together this mess of a puzzle as a community of theorists. There's still plenty more to speculate about as the Twisted Ones opens the door to even more interesting and even more absurd ways of maiming and murdering children with Chuck E. Cheese-style robotics. And I haven't even gotten to how I think the main character of the book series is probably a robot. But again, those are all theories for other days. In the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. You know, at this point, FNAF is 3 years old. 3.
How did he guess that Charlie was a robot? Alright, I think I'm gonna watch one more. And then, yes. Stop horse animatronic abuse. That's funny.
Y la membresía anual de Walmart Plus a mitad de precio. La oferta es ahorita. Pongan atención y la...
You know, it really is uncanny how these two games overlap. of Game Theory.
Whoa.
Technically, it's the 201st and a half episode because we had a mini theory way back on the channel a long time ago that's now privated because of reasons. And then technically the Bendy episode last week was the 200th episode, but I thought this felt more appropriate because it's solving FNAF with one final mega theory. So the 200th episode of Game Theory, proud members of the Pink Guy Truthers Club. Now, for those of you who don't know, one of the longest held debates in FNAF theorydom is whether this murderer watching children die is the same as this murderer watching children die. Because of their different colors, they became dubbed Purple Guy and Pink Guy, the two most threatening colors. Taste the rainbow, slaughter the rainbow. Anyway, since FNAF 2, I have been opposed to this theory, and I can now confirm it is dead. Like a child wanting a mediocre slice of overpriced pizza, dead. Which is dead. One look at Scott's
What is going on right now?
Freddy Files confirms it. Page 48, when describing the Foxy Go 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 minigame from FNAF 2, quote, Purple Guy is visible in the lower left corner of the room. There it is, clear as crystal. Purple Guy in the corner. Now comes the super awkward question that I never thought I'd have to answer. Which Purple Guy? Because there's two now, and if you didn't know that, strap in, it is gonna be a long episode. FNAF as a franchise has always been defined by questions. What was the missing children's incident? Who is Purple Guy? What's the deal with Balloon Boy? Seriously, what is the deal with Balloon Boy? But by FNAF 4, the games had just become a mire of unanswered questions where it was becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between a withered Freddy, a phantom Freddy, and a nightmare Freddy, let alone a golden Freddy versus a golden Fredbear. We had Fazbear Frights, Fazbear Pizzas, Fazbear Entertainment, Fredbear Diners, Fredbear and Friends, missing children, crying children, and bites from pretty much every decade. And then came Sister Location, where between the butter and bongos, theorists, myself included, struggled to try and fit together a story told by animatronics that lie, hand units that lie, animatronics that fuse with other animatronics, and animatronics that fuse together with humans, who then become purple and immortal. Needless to say, it was a lot. For me, what had become the scariest part of FNAF wasn't the jump scares, it was the lore. So you can understand why when the novels came out and offered what seemed to be simpler solutions, I hopped aboard. I started looking for more streamlined solutions within their pages, hunting for clues to the games in a place where they didn't exist, but kind of looked like they exist, and probably should have existed, but didn't exist, and the only thing I accomplished in the process was making things more complicated. So in all the time that FNAF 6 has been percolating in the back of Scott's mind brain, I've thrown out everything that I thought I knew about this series, and I've gone back to doing what I do best. Darn it, basic counting. 1 Freddy button, 2 Freddy buttons, 1 Foxy Toe, 2 Foxy Toes. Only this time, I was aided by knowledge of where the series was headed, as well as Scott's latest release, The Freddy Files. It's a book that many others dismissed as merely an elongated strategy guide to the games, but to me, it was invaluable at filtering down years' worth of lore into the details that Scott himself deemed as the most important to focus on. And this entire process of starting at square one has helped me to see connections I never made before, enabling me to create the thing I was most scared of. A timeline. A series of events that explain key breadcrumbs that Scott has left for us along the way. And the more I looked, the more it all started to make sense. And that's the plan for this video, and spoiler alert, the next video, to create a final, definitive, lore-based theory on the insanity that is FNAF. Putting to rest the key lingering questions in the first 5 entries of this franchise and opening the door for Scott to usher in FNAF 6. Since, at this point, we all know he's just waiting for us to solve the previous games before he releases the new one, right? Come to think of it, maybe I shouldn't finish this theory. Now, while I could sit here and rattle off hexadecimal color codes and animatronic design features and painfully hammer out the timeline inch by inch, no one cares. Trust me, I know I wrote 2 other versions of this script where I did exactly that, and both of them sucked. I was boring and confusing myself. It gets way too convoluted way too quickly when you dive into the details. But when I took a step back, I realized that the best way to understand FNAF at this point in history is to know that it's not a story about a haunted pizzeria, it's the story of a family. Meet the Aftons, a perfectly normal family of 5. Father, daughter, son, older brother, and mother. And the secrets of the Fazbear timeline are actually buried in the fates of each one of these characters. We begin with William Afton, the original Purple Guy, the father, the one who starts this whole timeline with a story that's all too familiar to us by this point. He starts killing kids at bear-themed pizza restaurants. It starts back in the 70s. Should have given him a big purple afro there, Scott. FNAF 2 flashes us back to these origins. showing us Purple Guy's first victim at Fredbear's Family Diner before flashing forward to show another 5 victims of the Purple Guy in the FNAF 2 location and potentially yet another 5 victims in the FNAF 1 location. And he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Literally, because his victims refuse to stay dead. The soul of the first child enters the puppet, who then gives life to the other children by preserving their spirits in the bodies of the other Fazbear animatronics. Give gifts, give life. We've all known this for years, and Scott even confirmed it, but we had to start somewhere since this is where the story begins. But where the story heads to next might surprise you. Sister Location. More specifically, the mini-games from Sister Location, where we meet Afton's adorable green-eyed daughter, No Name. Doesn't help that none of these characters have a name. You see, old Billy Afton isn't content with manually killing kids anymore. He's busy figuring out new ways to mass murder the youth of this nation, and he does what any good business owner ought to do, outsources it to the machines. He designs a series of fun-time animatronics with features specifically made for luring and capturing kids. We can see it on their blueprints: parental tracking, grouping, deter and misdirect, parental voicing, and once again, he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Or kid, in this case. His own daughter, in fact, who is so excited by the circus baby animatronic that she ignores her father's warnings to stay away from it and falls victim to the Claw. True FNAF fashion, she done gets herself scooped, goes on to possess Circus Baby, and that causes the eye color of Baby to shift from blue to green. The tragedy results in the spin-off restaurant Circus Baby's Pizza World closing down in one day. The day it opens, and the fun times get stored, as the trailers say, deep below ground where memories sleep, just waiting for the day that they become rentals. One Afton down. Now, before we kill off the next Afton child, let's rewind a minute to explain why Afton's daughter getting turned into human Froyo goes here. Since this is a pretty extreme break from how most people understand the FNAF timeline. Evidence the first, not only do we see the animatronics actively moving around their respective galleries, but their luring and capturing features were built with the specific intention of them acting as free-roaming robots, something that we know was phased out in the aftermath of the bite of '87. We also know that this incident happens before Springlock suits get decommissioned. On night 4 of Sister Location, Baby traps you inside a Springlock suit and says this:
"You're inside something that came from my old pizzeria. I don't think it was ever used. At least not the way it was meant to be used."
So Circus Baby and her pizzeria were from a time before the
unfortunate incident at Sister Location involving multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures,
which prompted all Springlocks to be banned, aka the bite of '83. More on that whole thing in a minute. But perhaps the biggest clues to the timeline placement of the Baby incident come from FNAF 4, what most of us have considered the first game in the timeline, where the crime...
We have officially crossed 2 hours. Yay.
Child gets bitten at his birthday party while psychic friend Fredbear.
Here he's there, he's everywhere. Who you gonna call? Psychic friend Fredbear.
Promises to put him back together. Throughout the game, the crying child, Afton's youngest son, keeps hearing the words, "Remember what you saw," repeated over and over to him. When the game first came out, the best I could do was speculate about what this was referring to, but now I think we have our answer. This moment. His sister getting scooped. The crying child saw this happen, thus prompting his fear of animatronics. And we know he saw it through one crucial design detail that Scott included. Look at how this kid's nightmares of Fredbear materialize. The stomach mouth. It's a design detail that we all overlooked, but there it is, positioned in the exact same way that Baby rips in half to claw grip Afton's daughter. It's how a child would perceive that incident. And that's not all. It also explains why the Afton home has an empty girls' room in it. Something that Scott clearly thought was important for us to see. So why is it empty? Because the sister is gone. She's dead. She's a victim of William's sloppy kidnapping scheme.
Just to be clear, I know previous theory said this girl was Baby, but she's not. It was a manipulative theory based on visual similarities that didn't pan out. In Sister Location, Scott very clearly showed us that Afton's daughter doesn't wear her hair pigtails and has a different color hair than the pigtail girl in FNAF 4. And we all know how Baby's guide is about colors. At least at this point in the series. We learned less after the whole Baby guy thing.
That's not all. Ballora also gives us an interesting perspective as we move on to the next member of the Afton clan. Here's a big question that no one's thought to ask about this series yet. The mother. Mrs. Afton, where is she? I mean, don't get me wrong, adoption is a great thing, but something tells me that Slick Willie over here isn't the single father of 3 type. It was a question that I had never considered until the answer practically slapped me in the face while I was reading the Freddy files. On page 127, Scott draws a very clear contrast between Funtime Freddy's voice system and the one belonging to Baby and Ballora. Quote, Funtime Freddy's audio seems pre-recorded and relates to kids and unlike Ballora and Circus Baby's audio, which is more complex. End quote. It's an interesting detail for Scott to specifically call out that I honestly never considered. Ballora is much more aware of her surroundings, responding in real time to movement in her chamber and not seeming to rely on pre-recorded lines like more rudimentary animatronics.
And you get half off an annual Walmart Plus membership. Come on! The deal's happening now. There's no time for eating.
Then why did you invite us today?
Plus, the membership already saves you on gas, plus video streaming, plus free delivery, plus so much more. This is happening now.
Add a mind.
Now.
All new Pretzel Babies are free. Order in the app or online today.
It seems like more than just a coincidence that the only other robot possessing this level of speech ability is the one that we know has Afton's daughter inside of her. Up until now, we've all been quick to write off Ballora as just this weird Rule 34 bizarre new addition to the animatronic roster. But is it possible that she has a bigger part in this story than we all realized? This is far from speculation. Another major clue hides in the song that she sings, one that Scott draws particular attention to in her character profile in Freddy Files. The lyrics go,
"Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my halls? All I see is an empty room. No more joy, I'm
Boehner.
It's so good to sing all day, to dance, to spin, to fly away."
this reference to an empty tomb with a
Boehner.
void resembling a vacant tomb is the same sort of language you would hear from a parent who had just lost a child, with the child's bedroom acting as a sort of tomb reminding them of their loss. Could it be that this song is referencing the daughter's empty room that we just talked about from FNAF 4? And if that's the case, does that make Ballora's true identity Mrs. Afton? Ballora is motherly in a way that all the other animatronics aren't, with the mini Renas as her children. And she's a much older and more mature-looking robot than anything that we've seen throughout the series. If this were truly the case, based on her song, it sounds like after the daughter done got herself scooped, William retreated into his work and probably a fair bit of child murder, hiding in his private room to bury his grief. That's what Ballora's line, "hiding inside your walls," is referencing. It would also explain why William has abandoned his other two sons by the year 1983, the time we see FNAF 4 roll around. He's too grief-stricken, leaving the older brother to be the one to have to take care of the crying child. Somewhere before 1983, his wife leaves him, or dies, or something. It's not really that important, and Afton preserves her memory inside an animatronic Ballora. And with that, another Afton gets buried in the basement. Which brings us to 1983 and leaves the men of the household as the last one standing. Crying child, older brother Michael, and the fate of William. One gets bit, one gets scooped, and one gets sprung? Ugh, I don't know, that sounds kind of bad. Regardless, the debate of whether Michael or William is the true purple guy who ends up in Springtrap is part of next week's video, along with how we know that this is 1983 and my definitive answer on who the crying child becomes. So make sure you ring the subscription bell down below to find out next week as soon as part 2 of this ultimate FNAF theory airs. Seriously, do it, otherwise you'll never know how this series ends, and you'll forever be wondering whether it's Will Trap or Mike Trap. And then FNAF 6 will come out and everything will be all higgledy-piggledy. And as a final treat for those of you who want to get super nerdy about the series and need more clarity on these early controversial timeline placements, well, if you look beyond just their fancier, more modern design, the evidence around the sister location animatronics points to them being earlier models. One detail of FNAF 4 that I've been kicking around in my head for a year now is the canonicity of the Halloween update. In the update, Scott included 3 new characters, Nightmare Mangle, Nightmare Balloon Boy, and Night Marionette. The appearances of Mangle and Marionette were both labeled as non-canon to the series, but things hit a wrinkle with Nightmare Balloon Boy because he got a pass. He was deemed canon, and that set off huge red flags for me because it tells us a crucial detail. That by the time of FNAF 4, Mangle doesn't exist yet, and Crying Child hasn't seen the puppet, but Balloon Boy does exist and has been seen by little Jimmy Night Terrors over here. Logically, for Scott to officially say that Nightmare Balloon Boy is canon, he has to have predated the events we see in FNAF 4. Balloon Boy had to be around prior to 1983, which leads us to what we see and hear in Sister Location. Sister Location's location is full of humanoid robots. Sure, there's Ballora and Baby, but there's also these little dolls that share a similar shape and visual style to Balloon Boy, making it seem like an earlier pizzeria had a more human theme than the Fazbear restaurant. That restaurant, I believe, was Circus Baby's Pizza World. Now, one thing I know people are going to bring up. In Sister Location, Hand Unit says,
"Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment."
Hearing the location of Sister Location opened after Fazbear Pizza closed down would lead you to assume that the events of Sister Location are happening later in the timeline, and you wouldn't be wrong, they are. But Hand Unit is talking about Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals. Baby and Ballora were built for Circus Baby's Pizza World, which, as I showed, came out long before that. This coincides with what we learned about Circus Baby's Pizza World in the pre-game teaser Scott released on Scott Games. Quote, the grand opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World has apparently been canceled due to reported gas leaks in the building. There was only a handful of people that ever got to look inside, kids from here and there, end quote. Obviously, this is all a cover-up for them actually closing the restaurant in the wake of Afton's daughter's death. That's beside the point. What's important here is that the animatronics were built at an earlier time, clearly during a period when Rosy Cheeks got a big thumbs up in the design department and were then stored underground after opening day when Afton's girl got scooped. Some were kept in rotation, landed out for parties, which explains how Balloon Boy shows up in FNAF 2, while all the others got forgotten underground, only to be uncovered when Michael was sent to put them all back together. Wait, are you all still here? Oh good, because I have yet to say it. Remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. See you next week for the finale to my final FNAF theory. Well, at least final FNAF lore theory. I suppose I could do a science one if Mood struck. And if there is eventually news for FNAF 6, I could do a predictive theory about it, I guess. By the way, did you hit that bell yet? You should to celebrate our 200th episode. Give or take one of the episodes. But whatever, this one feels like a big event. And finally, remember my YouTube Red Series Game Lab? Another episode is free for you to watch right now. No YouTube Red subscription required. Available internationally. No problem. Just click on it and watch. And it is, lo and behold, the FNAF episode. I put myself as well as 3 other YouTubers through a real-life version of the FNAF series. 100% recreated too, like battery-powered doors and everything, with limited energy. It's great. Check out how I do in a real-life version of FNAF by clicking the box to the right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go record part 2 of this episode.
Alright, this is the final one we're going to be watching today. Yeah.
I'm good. My watch beat you to it.
Well, hello again, theorists. We have a party planned today, and it's all for you. So, are you ready for round 2? Well, are ya? It's too late to turn back now. Get ready for a surprise. In 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where, did you know that Funtime Freddy was almost German? Jawohl, check it out.
Hello, little children. Glad to see you back again. Come closer. I'll sing a song for you.
How wild is that? Forget Freddy Fazbear, it's Freddy Fazbear. Calling it right now, FNAF 5 gave us Sister Location, FNAF 6 gives us international expansion. So, this is it. The end of an era. My last FNAF lore theory until the new game gets released. Makes me kinda sad, actually. So let's make it a good one as we set out to finish the job that we started 3 whole years together. Spoiler alert, purple guy? Not the phone guy. Believe me, I tried. So of the 5 Aftons, last time we had killed off 2. Mother and daughter, who go on to become Baby and Ballora. Afton's daughter getting clawed results in the immediate closure of Circus Baby's Pizza World, leading the company to retire the creepy, rosy-cheeked characters deep underground where memories sleep. But now let's talk about one question I haven't addressed yet, and one that was on everyone's mind during the launch to Sister Location. Where is Chica in all this? For the first time in these games, one of the core 4 animatronics was just gone. That seems significant, right? And it is. I joked earlier about FNAF Lederhosen location, but it touches on an element of these games that we tend to brush aside. That there's a business element running through all of them. Corporate doublespeak and liability talk coming from Phone Guy, parent companies in the form of Fazbear Entertainment, franchising with Sister Location. So what if Chica is missing from Circus Baby's gang because she was her own independent mascot at the time? It's not just wild speculation either. In the Scott Games source code leading up to Sister Location's release, we got all sorts of hints in the form of animatronic maintenance schedules. But mixed in there was a reference to something surprising. Chica's Party World, mentioned by name. Definitive proof that the character was the mascot of another business existing at the same time as Circus Babies, which was also a client of Afton Robotics. Chica isn't in Sister Location because she isn't a part of the family yet. She's still a solo act, but we know by FNAF 4 she's clearly a part of the Fredbear and Friends lineup. China. So it would seem that Fazbear Entertainment grew by merging with or buying out the other animal-themed restaurants in the area, with Chica being the last addition to the crew and why she's a part of the series from here on out. So no, theorists, contrary to popular belief, it wasn't just Scott trying to reduce the amount of creepy poultry-themed fan art. Let's be real here for a second, bibs aren't sexy. Just saying it now. All in it like I see it. So Fazbear Entertainment decides to go all in on the animal-themed robots because the whole clown thing was just a stupid idea. I mean, seriously, William, do some market research. Americans are more afraid of clowns than global warming. Know your consumer, man. Anyway, in FNAF 4, Fredbear's expanded to have himself some friends. It has become so popular that they're in full sellout mode, complete with plushies, toys, a TV show, and the ever-popular item, masks. Get them now because I hear they're selling like a god church. None of this would exist if this were truly the first location of a local pizza chain, confirming that this location in FNAF 4 is not where it all started like many have been assuming. What we're seeing here is something else, presumably what the TV says. Fredbear and Friends, a hybrid restaurant of the old Fredbear characters and the new spin-off ones where every character has their own spring-lock suit. Notice that the FNAF 4 Nightmare animatronics all have 5 fingers. The only other animatronic to have that feature, Springtrap. 5 fingers because the humans have to wear the suits. Which leads us to one of the biggest debates in this franchise. Is this 1983 or 1987? The fight at the birthday party makes it seem like it's 1987, but the TV says that it's 1983. Never before has so much nerd rage been prompted by discussion over trademark dates. Rage that lives on to this day, but now I can finally bring home to the storm. This is 1983. We know this based on a recent Reddit post Scott made on the subject of whether or not he's ever retconned his story. Quote, "The truth is that I've done one actual retcon in the series, although I'm not going to say where it was. There have been other times, however, when my original intentions didn't come across clearly. In those instances, I make a point to clarify in the next game. I used sister location to clear up a misconception from FNAF 4, end quote. Reading this, the obvious misconception from FNAF 4 was the year the events in the game took place, which, true to his word, he clarified via sister location and the private room camera code of 1983. 1983. When Michael Afton revisits his father's control room decades after the fact, he sees that all along William had been surveilling their family home using cameras that were password protected by one of the most sorrowful dates of his life. Regardless, neglectful Father William participates in the worst Bring Your Son to Work Day program ever by taking his traumatized son to a restaurant filled with robots he's afraid are gonna scoop him. And solidly in the no-help column is his older brother who taunts him mercilessly for his fears. The story comes to a climax when the brother's teasing goes too far, getting his younger brother chomped at his own birthday party. At the end of the game, William, through his psychic friend Fredbear observation plushies, patent pending, promises to put his son back together. Except he's too late. We hear a hospital flatline faintly in the background as the cutscene ends, meaning that the child dies. That's far from where his story ends. He appears in every other FNAF game because even though Daddy fails to put him back together, miraculously the crying child finds his way into becoming the ghostly Golden Freddy. For proof as to why, let's speed things up.
What Scott said in his Reddit post, he tries to clarify things in the next game. In between FNAF 3 and FNAF 4, there's a point he made sure to clarify. The happiest day making. Notice the masks across the two games. Not just symbolic imagery, but a direct reference to the masks worn during the crying child's failed birthday. Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. The restaurant layout is also the same, just mirror flip, with 3 party tables decorated with green, yellow, red, purple, and blue balloons. And it's a birthday party as evidenced by the cake. The puppet is recreating the birthday that was stolen from the crying child, and the mask that the crying child is seen wearing, Golden Freddy. But that's not all. The crying child gets taken by Death, aka Nightmare, an animatronic who just so happens to have an inverted Golden Freddy color palette. Yellow hat and tie with a black body as opposed to a yellow body with black accessories. Coincidence? I think not. It's also worth noting that Nightmare is one of only 2 canon animatronics to have a jump scare that's a static image with strange noises that crashes the game. The other, Golden Freddy.
Which leaves us with 2. William and Michael, father and son. Purple guy and other purple guy. The rest of the timeline is the story of a serial killer father and the son who's following behind, retracing William's steps to undo his father's cruel work and free the spirits of the dead children. This next bit we're all pretty familiar with since it's based on evidence from Phone Guy. The bite of 83 causes spring locks to get discontinued. William, acting as a technician across all the Fazbear restaurants, is responsible for handling the recalled suits and starts using the Golden Bonnie outfit to lure children into the secret safe rooms hidden in the back of each restaurant where they'll be safely off camera. He first strikes on June 26th at the FNAF 1 location. This murder, dubbed the Missing Children's Incident, eventually gets the place shut down, but results in Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy getting newly murdered children to power their engines. Those animatronics, along with the puppet, get shifted to the FNAF 2 location, along with some new toy robots linked to a criminal database to prevent a mass murder from happening again. Even some old favorites get pulled out of retirement, specifically Balloon Boy. And with that full roster, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has its grand reopening. Now posing as a security guard, William, with his spring lock, crank in hand, not phone, strikes again, causing the place to get investigated. William flees the scene, leaving the day shift security guard position open. Jeremy Fitzgerald moves up to fill the empty slot, but gets himself bit by the agitated animatronics in an event that comes to be known as the Bite of 87, an event that forces the company to cease any free-roaming activities of the animatronics from that day forward. The toy animatronics get scrapped for just sucking at spotting a child murderer, and the old robots get stored back at the original FNAF 1 location. At this point, though, William knows that these things are alive and angry at him, so he tries to dismantle them using the safe room as his cover. And it would have worked out too if it weren't for those meddling kids, or at least their meddling spirits, because he didn't calculate that the spirits could live on without the animatronic shells. He tries to defend himself against these ghosts by ducking into his trusty murder suit, but his haste, coupled with the moisture of the room, causes the spring locks to fail and Afton to get skewered inside of the big yellow bunny. The company, trying to save face, and let's be honest, their stock value, covers up William's crime spree by sealing off the safe room with the dying William Afton, now Springtrap, inside. I know, but Michael might be Springtrap. We're getting there. The management instructs all Fazbear employees to behave as though those safe rooms never existed, and another Afton falls victim to a horrible fate. Only this time, he absolutely, totally deserved it. But now let's look at the final Afton, Michael. His story begins with the main gameplay of Sister Location, where Mike Afton, who we learn looks a lot like his father,
They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
is sent by dear old dad to put his sister back together. A promise that William makes to apparently a lot of his kids. This request of Michael presumably happened some years earlier when Mike was still a child, or before Afton ran away to escape murder charges, as implied by him saying,
I'm going to come find you.
Mike succeeds in saving Baby, but gets himself spooked in the process, having his innards replaced with innards. As we see throughout the canon customized cutscenes, this causes his body to slowly decay, turning purple, until Ennard abandons ship to look for a fresher body that'll draw less suspicion. Michael miraculously survives his Ennard enema, and here's where all sorts of puzzle pieces start to fall together. First, we know his name is Michael, but that he also goes by Mike, as shown by his name tag on hand unit. This immediately connects us with FNAF 1's Mike Schmidt, the original security guard, a guy who eventually gets fired for tampering with the animatronics and his odor. It was the first game in the series, so we all thought it was a funny joke, but now we know better. Scott doesn't do jokes. Not only does the name Mike match, but a rotting flesh sack with no innards would definitely...
Does that mean Exotic Butters isn't a joke? Or Casual Mongos? Just saying.
be pretty smelly. And if true to Sister Location, Mike's mission is to free the spirits of children killed by his dad, he would absolutely be guilty of tampering with the animatronics. It even provides us for an explanation as to why the animatronics would be trying to kill him in the first place. We hear it in Sister Location. He looks just like his father, which, man, William, if your face looks like a rotting corpse, might be time to consider getting some plastic surgery. But if all that wasn't enough, we can even tie it in with Golden Freddy's behavior in the game. Anytime Golden Freddy appears in FNAF 1, he's accompanied with the flashing text of, "It's me." As we just saw, Golden Freddy contains the spirit of the crying child, Mike's brother. So the "it's me" is one brother speaking to another brother, making him aware that he's here, he's present, and in need of spiritual release. Now, knowing that Mike Afton and Mike Schmidt are one and the same, rewind to FNAF 2 and the character Fritz Smith, a security guard fired on his first day on the job for what? Odor and tampering with the animatronics. Coincidence? Absolutely not. God doesn't do coincidences. Michael Afton is literally going location to location, undoing the sins of his father's past and stinking up the places as he do, like Michael says at the end of Custom Night.
I'm going to come find you.
And finally does at Fazbear Front.
Before we get to the end of the timeline, let's address the elephant in the room. The fact that Purple Guy is established to be the killer, and Michael is clearly shown to be purple in the Custom Night. So would that make him the killer? No. As much as I can say, there are actually two purple guys, but only one real purple guy. Admittedly, I let that person think dramatic fact, but let me explain. Or better yet, let FNAF world explain. It is you recruit a familiar looking purple sprite onto your team, and he says this. Don't confuse him with the
actual purple guy. I'm just a game sprite, and there's the difference. One of these characters is physically purple. That character is Michael, and the other is just a placeholder on the screen. A sprite representing a shadowy figure who, because of the background of the minigame happens to be black, had to be colored differently, and that color was purple. But you don't even have to get that meta. It's made pretty darn clear in Sister Location's intro that William is the one who built animatronics intended to capture kids, whereas Michael is established as the one who's trying to save them. Even the timeline supports this. The murders date back all the way to Red Bear Family Diner in the 70s with a guy who's old enough to drive. There's no chance that Michael, the son, would be the right age to be the original purple guy. And lastly, if you believe that Michael Afton is also Mike Schmidt and Fritz Smith as evidence suggests, then the phone guy call gives you an alibi. Phone guy is talking to you about other security guards being investigated for murder, which implies that you yourself are not guilty. Mike's efforts to atone for his family's past proved to be successful. Game by game, we see him piecing together the family reunion. Sister Location saw him free both Laura and Baby. Then in FNAF 3's Faster Fright, Afton's younger brother, now in the form of Golden Freddy, receives peace via the Happiest Day minigame. Even the spirits inside Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica get exorcised by Mike, which is why the good ending of FNAF 3 shows 4 empty, unlit animatronic heads. That's also why, come the main gameplay of FNAF 3, the only animatronic that's still active in real life is Springtrap. Mike has been successful at appeasing every other one of the spirits, leaving him alone with dear old Dad.
I'm going to come find you.
He gets a job as security guard of Fazbear Fright, and shortly after, the creators of the attraction stumble across FNAF 1's secret room, with the remains of Mike's father spring-trapping around inside. Mike sets the place on fire to finish off his killer dad once and for all, because seriously, did you really think that building just spontaneously caught on fire? Fires in fictional stories always have a dramatic purpose, and Mike would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for that meddling father, who, in both the FNAF 3 newspaper clippings and Sister Location's special ending, is shown to have survived the fire and is now undoubtedly more bloodthirsty than ever. The end? Question mark. Hallelujah. The craziest part of all this is when you actually stop and look at the story, there really isn't a need for FNAF 6. Outside of the return of Springtrap cliffhanger and revealing what's inside the box, yeah, remember that, everything else pretty much has an answer. Sure, there are still parts of the tale that could be more fleshed out, like the origins of the puppet or what happens after Ennard gets ejected from Mike, but at this point, all the characters have completed their story arcs. The family is reunited and the spirits are all at peace. It's actually pretty poetic. It took nearly 20 theories and literally weeks of my life studying these breadcrumbs to get there, but we did it. We got to a solution that fit together practically all of the loose ends, and that's pretty darn special. Thank you for being a part of that journey with me. It's been an incredible ride. I have no doubt that this isn't 100% correct, but you know what? It's an explanation I'm happy with. One that I feel provides a sense of closure to the series, and one that I'm gonna let stand as my final word on the 5 games worth of series lore until a new installment. Crap, a new installment that just so happened to get teased immediately after last week's part 1. Scott, don't go getting predictable on me. Calling it now just so I can avoid the inevitable prediction theory. It's an installment that looks like it's gonna be taking yet another step back in the timeline to tell the origin stories of the puppet. Notice how the sprites are the exact same as the FNAF 2 Give Cake minigames, where the first child gets murdered and the puppet pops out of the screen. Also notice that the rainbow design is a direct callback to the aesthetic of 70s technology, which is when Fredbear Family Diner and the first murder would take place. Lastly, the source code on Scott Games keeps saying, what is paragraph 4? Well, paragraph 4 could be relating to a lot of things, but the one thing that jumps out at me is that as soon as my episode went up, this teaser came out. Paragraph 4 of my episode last week happened to be about William Afton's first murders. But before I end all this, let me give the hardest of hardcore fans one more deep dive on the whole Will Trap versus Mike Trap debate. Let's speed it up. Most hardcore fans believe Mike is the purple guy currently in the Springtrap suit, and it's easy to see why. His voice is modified with an electronic effect in the custom-made ending. Springtrap pops up at the end of Mike's final words.
I'm going to come find you.
And the purple guy sprite who ends up in the suit is seen releasing kids from their animatronics. However, these are easily explained away. We've heard Springtrap talk before, or should I say gurgle before in FNAF 3. And Mike's voice is very different from Springtrap's. Springtrap popping up on I'm going to come find you could very easily just be a visual storytelling element where Mike is stating his mission to track his father down. We visually see that he did it, but oh no, cliffhanger, Dad ain't dead. And we already talked about how William could very well be dismantling the animatronics to try and stop their attack. So it seems like a pretty balanced debate, or at least it does until you look at the timeline. Based on order of events, William inside Springtrap is undeniable. Whoever is working as night guard in Fazbear Fright can't just be some random guy off the street. It's someone who has seen both the FNAF 1 and FNAF 2 animatronics, considering he's having hallucinations of Mangle, Balloon Boy, and the puppet, as well as the first generation version of Chica. The only person who worked at both those places outside of William Afton himself is Michael Afton. Also, we hear that Circus Baby's rentals appeared in the wake of Freddy's Pizza being closed, but the safe rooms were sealed with Springtrap inside while Freddy's Pizza was still open. That's why there's a whole series of phone guy tapes telling employees about the safe rooms, how to use them, and then, oh wait, no, we're closing them down, pretend like they never existed.
that due to budget restrictions, we can limit the main room to each field and both locations. Going list. More crews will be here hosting the day today. Construction of all floor over the old store base. Nothing's being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, it is your own fault. And if we call the request, Mr. Huntington's family, friends, or insurance representative.
If Mike were truly Springtrap, that would mean he never would have had the opportunity to get sued and turn purples, and Circus Baby's rentals wouldn't have opened at that point, and he would have been trapped in the walls of the FNAF 1 location in the Springtrap suit. Lastly, if Mike were Springtrap, then who set fire to Fazbear Fright? I guarantee that fire was intentional. It was meant to finish off the last awful pieces of Freddy's legacy, and Mike's really the only one possessing that sort of motive. William is the established killer who would be cocky, thinking that he got away from the spirits by hiding in his golden bodysuit, which seems very counter to how Mike behaves. Oh yeah, and let's also not forget Scott confirmed our theories on the killer being in Springtrap years ago. If all of that doesn't convince you, hell, I look forward to watching your research. Alright, 12 pages later, I'm finally ready to close this thing out. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Now don't get mad at me when the new game comes out in a few weeks and everyone tells me to do another theory about it. Hey, and a very special thanks to Kellen Goff, the voice of Funtime Freddy, who recorded that incredible intro. Please do me a favor and follow him on Twitter at Kellen Goff for all the latest on the projects he's working on. Freddy
Love
included,
Kellen.
but also stuff like Hearthstone, which is really awesome. Also, if you want more FNAF action, watch me and Rosanna Pansino play FNAF 6. Yeah, that's right, FNAF 6 together. That's a new video on her channel, and the link is right on screen right now. We both get so scared by this card game. And lastly, surprise, surprise, I actually do more than Freddy theories. If you want a new series to tide you over until FNAF 6, check out Hello Neighbor. It's great, and there's tons of theory fodder in there. Here's a theory to get you started. Just click that box on the right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need a nap.
I do too. Okay, let's see how much more I have left. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 27, 28, 28, 28, 20, 20, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 43, 44, 45. I'm only on 20 out of 89. Okay. Okay. I will see you all next time, where I slowly lose my sanity. I'm kind of enjoying this, but it's fun to look back at old theories that I watched when I was in my early FNAF phase. But I need water, and I want it to be done for today because I've been going on for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Hopefully next time we do this I will be more recharged.